tonight's meeting to order. Kathleen Allen.
Here.
Tom Chapa.
Here.
Heather Del Conte.
Here.
Pamela Dow.
Here.
Lisa Glidden.
Here.
James McKenzie.
Here.
Linda Serena.
Here.
At this time, the board would like to move to an executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular person. Is that still correct?
Work performance, yes.
If I could have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
I'll
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You may move to executive session. If you would use the link that I sent you, it does say 6:30, but you still can use that link.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jim was a first and Kathleen was a second.
Thank you. If I could have a motion for the board to move to regular session, please.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it. It's Lisa.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed. Next is public session. We have one item tonight from John D. Hollander, 4411 Furnace Station Road. Would like to know if the Oswego City School District Board of Education has adopted the critical race theory into the teaching curriculum. Next is Dr. Calvin with the superintendent's report.
Thank you so much. Good evening, board. So we do have a busy report for you tonight, and we'll just kind of jump right in. Okay, Matt, go right ahead, please. So tonight, the district is certainly moving forward with bringing kids back for more in-person instruction, and we'll share a little bit about that tonight. In our report tonight, I'd like to share with you some student highlights. I'll talk a little bit about our Q&A document from our last meeting of follow-up, principal search, the school reopening information, our summer programming where we're at right now, our athletic update. We'll talk a little bit about security. We have a person on here to share with us tonight around security. And then we'll talk a little bit about our 2021 budget in terms of where we're at as of right now. Okay, Matt, go right ahead. So first, I guess I'd like to start tonight by highlighting some really great things that have happened. We've got a lot of kids doing some really good things all across the district. Every day we've got, kids being recognized for character, for academics, for, you name it across the board. They're just doing some really great work. And I just wanted to start today by talking about two of our kids. One is Xavier Vasquez, who took home the Scripps National Spelling Bee Regional Final Championship and won a chance to move to the next round for the national finals. So I just wanted to say congratulations to Xavier. I know he worked really hard and his whole entire family. Yeah, he's worth a round of applause for sure. Absolutely. He should get that for sure. And then we've got also a high school student who was recently recognized in the most recent New York State School Board's newsletter, and that's Sasha. Sasha, I hope I say this last name correctly. Lozaya, I believe is the last name there. And Sasha, just so you know, he speaks 4 languages, plays 3 instruments, is an athlete, and also has taught himself several computer programming and advanced mathematical languages. So I just wanted to congratulate Sasha for the really great article in the New York State School Board's piece, and say keep up the great work. We can give him a round of applause too. Great job, Sasha. Thank you very much. So just a lot of great kids doing some great things, and we just want to highlight some of the great things happening. Okay, Matt, move ahead. Board, at our last meeting, we talked a little bit about a question and answer page. I just want to let you know that page is up now. It's on, if you go to the board webpage, you will see a Q&A page there. Public can just click on it, and any questions that came up from the public, in terms of questions that I would need to answer, we certainly have that spot that we can certainly answer there for the public, so people can scroll through and see questions that have been asked previously and get those answers as well. That is up. It is live for the public to see. Okay? All right. Go ahead, Matt. All right, and I just wanted to shift gears for a moment and just let you know, just in terms of an update, the district is also moving forward with its high school principal search. We have screened now over 50 applicants. We've been looking for candidates who have actually experience working at the high school level, secondary level, and also who can really, who share the philosophies and also the interests that we have here in the district. So we have nailed it down to now 5 finalists, again, all who have experience at the secondary level. And then semi-finalist interviews now will be with stakeholders. Our first round is set for April the 12th, and that stakeholder group will have staff members from all over the district. We have some parents that are on that process as well. And we've also asked, we have a board member, I think Pam's going to help us out throughout the process here as well. And then the finalist interviews are April 15th. Now, if there are any other board members who'd like to certainly help us, we are looking for one more. If you'd like to, you are more than welcome. Just send me an email and let me know tomorrow, and we'd love to have you be a part of that. So hopefully after the 15th, we will have a candidate to bring to the board for the next board meeting right after that. Our ongoing screening processes, just so that you know, we're going to continue to screen candidates just in case we don't find the candidate. Just so that you know, we're going to keep our pool open, and we'll continue to look for folks as we kind of move forward. Any questions around the search at all? Everybody good? Okay, well, thank you. All right, go ahead.
I have a comment. I'm glad that Pam is serving on that because she's got experience in the high school. So thank you, Pam, for giving up your time on that. I mean, for as long as you were in that high school in different capacities.
Absolutely. All right, absolutely.
I agree, Mathis. Can I just ask though, is this all being done over like virtually over Zoom?
So the 12th, right now, we're looking to do all of that virtually with our stakeholders. And then the finalist group will be a smaller group. We'd like to do that one in person, but it'll be certainly socially distanced and in person.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Okay, everybody good, board? Okay, go ahead, Matt. Just some news that has just come to our attention. We want to let you know that over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be having a visit from the comptroller's department for the state. We received notice that the comptroller is going to come out and do an audit on our district. It's been a number of years since they've been here, and we're certainly in their rotation. So they're going to come back and do an audit with us. As of right now, we don't know what the full scope is going to be. We don't know what's involved in terms of what they're going to be what the look-fors are. However, we know that the audit is going to cover the period of July 1st through to the present. The audit objectives are going to be determined in the near future after the department, the Office of the Comptroller conducts a preliminary audit survey of the district's operations. And then we'll soon have an audit entry conference, hopefully within the next week or so. And during that conference, they will identify who the staff are, officials that need to be a part of this whole process. And then they'll provide time for us to ask questions and also determine any resources that the examiners will need for the audit. We don't know how long it'll last, but you know, it's just one of those processes that you have to go through so often in districts. So they will be out, and we'll certainly let you know how things go. And as we move through it, we'll keep you informed. Any questions on that, board? Okay, go ahead, Matt. All right, so next, just want to talk a little bit about our reopenings, you know, and bringing kids back. So all of our elementary schools, welcome back grades 2 and 3 on Monday of this week for 4 days a week. It's been very busy in all of our elementary schools. I was at 3 of them today. I would like to really thank and highlight our teachers and our administrators, our teacher assistants, our aides, our support staff, everybody, for really pulling together and making sure that things go well. This isn't easy. But everyone is, you know, when you walk through and you see how things are working very smoothly for the most part, they make it look easy. But I want them all to know that we appreciate all of their hard work, and we thank them for all their due diligence with getting grades 2 and 3 back in this week. So on April 19th, our goal is now to bring back grades 4 through 12 for more in-person learning. And we want folks to know that there will be some differences in some of our start and end times. And that's really because of transportation. So, you know, the CDC has given out guidance that talks about 3 feet. The state of New York has told us at this time that you can have some more kids in, but you have to have appropriate barriers in place. And masking should be taking place wherever possible. But there's been no real updates from the state as of yet, based on what the CDC has said. We have heard yesterday that the governor is coming out before the end of the week with more updates. One of the things that we're looking at is transportation closely, because right now there is no updated transportation guidelines. So, you know, it's basically only 22 kids to a bus. You can sit only so many kids in an area. Families can sit together, but it's like every other seat. And so, you know, it's really a challenge with the transportation. So the only way that we can get our kids in is we had to really stagger some of our start and end times. So at this point in time, what we're looking at is for secondary to go from 7:30 to 1:30. Riley and Layton will go from 8:30 to 2:30. And then the next stagger of buses will be 9:30 to 3:30, and that will have KPS, Fitzhugh, and Manetto. Right? So again, it'll be staggered time in order to accommodate everyone. Now, also our teachers and staff will be working with kids still who are virtual. We're already doing live streaming but they'll also spend time throughout the daytime working with those kids who need extra assistance online. We've also planned for now an extension of the learning time. Each of our schools will now go for an hour longer each day. And then on Wednesdays, we're going to be reducing the amount of time for asynchronous learning. We've heard loud and clear from our parents that if there's a way to increase synchronous learning on Wednesday, that would be a real big ask. And we can accommodate that. We've been working with our staff, and what we're going to be doing starting the 19th is on Wednesdays, there'll be a half day of instruction at all of our schools online. The other half day, the teachers will be doing all of the check-ins that need to be done, all of the social emotional learning, all of the academic intervention, additional academic intervention supports. They'll be doing small group, one-on-one, all of those things to keep those kids up who are working virtually. And we know that there is a bunch that do still require that type of assistance. I'm sorry, Heather, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just about the Wednesdays, if we're going to half day instruction, and then I'm just wondering if the teachers then are going to be asked to kind of reduce the workload that they expect on that day, because we also have heard from parents that the workload is very extreme. Yeah. I mean, it kind of runs the gamut, I guess, but
yes.
Just curious if the guidance is there.
We are certainly working on that balance. Absolutely, Heather, right? So our goal, we certainly don't want to exert our students. We want to make sure that there's that right balance there. And with the live instruction, that will certainly help. We've also heard that some of our kids have some challenges. We know that they have challenges when there's not a person in front of them. So they'll have that live instruction. And yes, we will certainly be working on the workload as well. Absolutely. Yes. Tom, did you have a question there, sir?
Yes, I did, and I'm not to change it. I'm sure you did put a lot of time in thinking of the timing on this, but what was the reasoning in terms of starting secondary at the earlier time versus the only reason I say that is the studies done in terms of kids starting later being more beneficial. So I was just curious as to why we were starting.
Yeah. So there's a couple things here, right? So first of all, our kids are already on earlier in the morning. We were trying not to cause too much disruption from their start time, which they currently have right now. I think that changing to a later start time, that needs to be a bigger conversation, to be honest with you. My feeling is with the whole community, because there's a lot that goes in with that type of a change systematically. The other thing that was a concern too, we didn't really want to really frustrate many of our parents who do rely on some of the older children to assist with after school care for some of the younger kids as well, right? So if the older kids can come home at 3:30 and the younger kids get home at 1:30, it might cause some challenges amongst the community too. So again, one, for continuity and consistency, two, for just trying to really not upset the apple cart right now and keep things kind of standard as they're going right now. Third, for the transportation need, and then for childcare. Those are the reasons that we kind of said let's keep this kind of where it's at this point in time. Does that make sense, Tom?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. I'm sure I was just thinking back to prior to COVID in terms of later start dates for kids in terms of their performance. So I was just curious, but thank you.
Jim? Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Jim? Sir?
So I've got a couple things I'll actually just say. I think Tom's notion there that we look at things in the future, I think that's a good thing. But yes, I completely agree. It's a future conversation. So two things. One's a comment in that if classes are able to, based on the number of students in a classroom, I would hope that we would maximize social distancing. I think a lot of parents are thinking sending their kids back 6 feet versus 3 feet, but there may be some rooms based on the size and the number of students where you could have 4 or 5 feet. And I would just hope that our plan includes maximizing the distances as much as possible. So that's just a comment.
Yes.
The other is more of a question, in the fact that we're looking for the middle school, high school to go back on the 19th. But at least for the high school, we haven't, at least I have not seen a survey yet for those students about whether they'll be changing modality, whether they might need a Chromebook or not, because maybe they were using a household unit versus needing a school unit if they were transitioning back to 4 days a week. So I'm just kind of wondering when we might see that survey.
Sure. Okay, so the first thing with respect to able to maximizing distancing. Jim, we've actually been shooting for 4 feet wherever we can. We're trying to spread it out as much as we can. So we're going to look for every place we can to maximize. I would say to you that it might be difficult to do that in all cases, right? Depending on the numbers that come back. But yes, we're committed to trying to maximize wherever we certainly can. With respect to the survey for the parents, my understanding was that there was a letter that was forthcoming to the parents who wanted to come back for additional time at the secondary level. Heidi, are you on there right now?
I am, yes, and actually, Mr. Wallace just sent it out this afternoon. I received it as a parent probably an hour ago. So, Jim, maybe you will get it to Pam saying, yes, she got it. There's some information in there. So if parents did want to make a change, there's like a process outlined for how they should go about doing that. And I think there's information that either came out previously, I can't recall, or is going to come out with information about if your child needs a Chromebook, because at home they were able to use a home-based computer, but now they're coming to school. There's a whole process for how they can do that.
Yeah. And certainly we do have the computers available. I believe they go to the library, if I remember correctly, to sign those out and get those. I know that students have been doing that already who are currently in person, and some have come in to ask for additional Chromebooks who didn't have it before. At the middle school, I think there was a letter that went out already. Wasn't that last week? I think Friday?
Yes, she sent it out last week sometime, maybe Thursday. That went out and again outlined the process if parents wanted to make a change, who to contact.
Does that help, Jim?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. I was having supper before the meeting, so I didn't check my email. But thank you very much.
No worries. No worries. Okay. And so also, I just want to add here at the end of this piece here, one of the things that we're going to certainly continue to watch is our health and safety of our students. Nothing more important than the health and safety of our kids, right? If we start to see infections, we'll respond. We'll go from there, right? We're definitely watching, to see how many cases we get each place, what, where, and how, and dissecting all the data that we receive every day. And I would like to just continue to share with parents that, we're in the middle of a pandemic. I know that, yes, we are getting more and more vaccinations, but we do want to ask people just to, continue to have a backup plan in case something goes wrong with a school or with a classroom. We are hoping that we can work through the next couple of months with no difficulty, but it just, yes, fingers crossed for sure, right? But again, we're in the middle of a pandemic and things may change. Given they could change on a moment's notice. So we just ask our folks to just keep that in mind as we kind of move forward. Okay? All right. Matt, go ahead, please. All right. The last thing we wanted to share with you before we bring in Dr. Morgan is around K through 12 programming. So at our last meeting, we talked a little bit about K through 12 summer programming. And I want to make sure that the board knows that we are working right now on offering summer programs for our students. K through 8 are certainly what we're looking at right now is a K through 8 academic intervention program. The goal is to kind of have our K through 8 students, really, especially those who we see through our data that are really struggling, get some additional help over the summer. Program will be a 30-day program. And our goal, again, is to help those students recover any learning that has been lost, to support those who are struggling as we look at our data, and to really help to make gains with respect to reading and with math from this school year, basically. The 9 through 12 group of students will also have a summer school program offered here in the district. We're also, with that, be offering some credit recovery programming as well. We're looking to see if we can kind of work with our BOCES around 9 through 12 so that we can get some of this aided, if at all possible, right? But there are some opportunities. We've reached out to a couple districts around us, 2 districts in particular, and we're trying to work with the city BOCES to see if that's an opportunity. Again, the only goal with that is just to try to make sure we get some of this aided. But what we're trying to do is really, again, make sure the kids have credit recovery available and a summer school program that's available. We know that our BOCES is not providing a program this year, but if we can work together with other districts and create one, BOCES is saying that they're willing to work with us to aid that type of programming. The last thing that we're also going to certainly, of course, make sure is in place is we're looking to make sure that we have an extended school year program and also supports for our students with disabilities, and also supports in place for our English language learners as well. For all of those groups of students, our goal is to make sure that we have a 30-day academic program in place to help support learning and make sure that our kids are really prepared and ready for as we return back to school. So I see Tom and Linda who have questions. Tom, go ahead.
Yes, Mathis, I was just wondering if the CARES money would be allowed to use this, and we can think of it not as a conventional summer school, but an extended or a more intensive summer school where we'd be able to think outside the box and utilize this time and money to do that.
Yes. There's a certain portion right now that we know of, 20% of the CARES Act money that has to be used designated in this way. So yes, this is an opportunity that we certainly don't want to lose, right? And use the funds for sure to leverage student outcomes. Now we still have some learning to do around that CARES Act money, and you hear me. There's a slide later on that we'll talk a little bit about with that. But yes, Tom, that we are planning, if we can, to do that. However, you should know now, one of the things we're looking at though is if we do some of this through city, we may not be able to use the CARES Act money because you can't double dip, right? So you're using federal funds and then you're getting money back on that reimbursed. So we have to be careful with that. So we're checking out all of those entities, those questions we're asking now. In fact, there's a meeting tomorrow that I will be attending, and that's one of the questions that I'll be asking around that. Okay? Right. Linda, did you have a question there?
Yes, I did. Talking about the K-12 academic intervention program, is that going to be targeted for just special ed students, or will it be for students that are academically below in math and reading?
Sure. No. So it will be, we'll have a variety of programs going on. So we're going to have K through 8 academic intervention programming for kids who are struggling with reading, with math, writing, those kinds of ELA kinds of things, right? And that our data is showing us. We'll have programs again for kids 9 through 12, which will be a summer school program and a credit recovery kind of program. And then the third group of programs will be for extended school year. Those are for the kids with disabilities and those English language learners, right?
So there will be criteria for kids to get into the K-8.
Yes, yes. And that criteria is really kids who are really struggling, needing some help, right? Needing some support. And we certainly have that, and we certainly are experiencing that kind of support need in our district. And I hope I answered your questions there, Linda. Good? Okay. So Heidi and Carrie, do you want to just talk about next steps in the process for us?
Sure. Linda, I just saw you raised your hand again. Did you have another question before we? No? Okay, great. Yep, so Carrie and I have been, some of the next steps as we outlined, we had a preliminary meeting with the representative from City, who's our contact out there. She's given us some information. A couple of other districts in the county are also doing a similar model as we are. So we're trying to share and not have to recreate the wheel together whenever possible. But we're taking some information and then we're working collaboratively, hopefully with another district in the county, to go through this next steps where we would post for the positions, work with administrators to develop that criteria, as well as discuss instructional methods. Carrie will probably share a little bit about her K-6 that we're also using a similar criteria for 7-8. We've reached out to the principals. I've talked with Mary Beth Fierro and with Pat Wallace. Our 9-12 programming is really a little bit more of a traditional credit recovery because, as there was last summer, there is a Regents exemption eligibility criteria. Students will have to earn the course credit in order to be eligible for a Regents exemption. There are no Regents exams scheduled for August, so the focus is really going to be on that credit recovery. Carrie, I'll turn it over to you.
And as you can see, one of the things I've been working on is criteria for selection of the students in K-6. We want to make sure the class sizes are small so the students do get the individualized help that they need in ELA and math. And so the criteria will go towards to the teachers, and they will help fill in the students they feel need to be asked to come to summer school. And then from there, we will continue to collect the data on those students so we can then create the intervention plans. So we will utilize the 2 days prior to the students coming for PD and for planning so that we can gear up and get ready for whatever plans that need for each of the students that will be attending. So that's part
of April is pushing out that criteria and getting teachers to fill in the information that will be needed to then create the classes.
All right. So, there's more to come. When we come back the next time, we'll share more with you, board. But again, we just wanted to make sure that you knew that we're planning for 3 different types of programming over the summer. And again, the goal is to support our kids. Tom, I'm sorry. Did you have a question? I didn't want to.
I did have one other thing, Mathis. I want to know, are we in conversation at all with SUNY Oswego in the sense of utilizing resources or in any way, shape, or form that would help both, both entities?
At this point in time, what we're looking at is internal to see what we currently have in place. And we do have some supports in place already from SUNY Oswego through the Reading League, right? So we have a number of things that are currently already in place, Tom. So we haven't, at this point, broached for additional supports. I do think we do have the staff internal who can certainly meet the kids. They know the kids. They're working with them every single day, right? And I think what they need is just more time. And more, time to really work with them one step at a time. So we haven't really engaged in a lot of conversations with the college. Right now, we've engaged more with internal, with ourselves, to see who's having what challenges, what are those challenges, and then how we might put the right staff in place in front of the students to support them as we kind of move forward throughout the summer. Okay. I hope I answered your question, Tom. Okay. All right. Okay. Are there any other questions from anybody else? Okay. All right. Thank you, Heidi and Carrie. All right. Go ahead, Matt. All right. So we're going to switch gears now, board. And I'd like to share with you a little bit of what's going on in terms of spring athletics and just get your feedback and talk a little bit. So Dr. Morgan is on with us. Thank you for coming on tonight, Dr. Morgan. And I believe Rhonda is on with us as well. Rhonda, I think, are you there, Rhonda? I can barely see some of them for some reason right now on my screen. But okay, so spring athletics are all set down to begin April 19th for JV, varsity, and varsity, and then April 26th for the modified. That's again starts on the 26th. So we have a couple of things that are coming back. Wrestling, modified and varsity, is recommended to return. We know that that's a high-risk sport, which does present concerns. Track and field, modified and varsity, that's really considered right now low risk, no concerns presenting there. Baseball with modified, JV, and varsity. So there's low to moderate risk. Again, no real concerns. We think we can do that okay. Softball, there's some teams that are coming back are modified, JV, and varsity. Low to moderate risk. Again, no concerns. We think we can do that all right. Girls varsity golf, low risk, no concerns at this time. Boys varsity tennis, low risk, no concerns really at this time. Boys lacrosse, modified JV and varsity. So it's considered right now high risk because of some of the different things that they do. And Rhonda, are you there? Is Rhonda on there with us right now?
Dr. Calvin, she had to go to the gym for a moment. She should be right back.
I'm on.
Okay.
I came back. I'm sorry. I'm trying to slip between senior night for volleyball and here, but yes, I'm on. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Rhonda. Can you just share a little bit of the concern there with lacrosse, why it's high risk at this time? Some of the activities that's going on.
They start with what's called a face-off. It's a FOGO. So their concern is that interaction with the kids in the actual checking versus the girls' game. So the proximity of the players being closer together, that's been considered a high-risk sport out of the gate.
Okay.
So, but they would be required to wear masks.
Okay. So we do think that there are some concerns there. We do think that it's manageable, though, something that we can certainly work through and support. And then there's girls lacrosse, modified JV and varsity. That is considered to be low to moderate risk, and again, no real concerns there. The biggest concern that we have right now is the piece around wrestling, because now we have kids who they'll have more direct contact, basically, and that concern is not only ours but across the whole state. So I asked Dr. Morgan to come on and talk about this sport. There are certainly some districts who are doing it. There are some who are not. So I wanted him to just talk a little bit about the sport itself, and then if we were to do it, what's involved in the process. Dr. Morgan?
Sure. Thanks for having me back, everybody. So just to give my perspective, not only as a physician, I wrestled for 8 years, so I know this sport inside and out. So it's not from not knowing the sport. this was a concern when we first started coming back in, because there is no way to social distance when you're wrestling. You are right up close and personal. And we just had a little concern about the face-off. That's the beginning 25 seconds of a lacrosse game. Wrestling is in your face for the entire, 5 minutes or so of the match. And because of that, you have more concerns. There are some things that are changing. There's ways that we can make it safer. Some sports, we always say they're supposed to wear a mask, but you watch the news and go to some games. Some people are wearing their mask down under their chin. Some are doing this. Some are over one ear. You have to design a mask that is worn properly for wrestling. You can't have a cheap mask. You got to have one that fits properly. Now, unless the rules have changed, I don't think they have. With wrestling, you're required to have a headgear to protect your ears. So if you have a proper mask on and a headgear is properly fastened over your ears, you're already helping to hold that mask in position. But unlike lacrosse, you don't have a mask in front of or a helmet with a mask in front of it. So it very easily can get moved around if we don't have really secure mask. So we have to be careful about that. We now have a change in New York State where we could consider vaccinating 16 to 18-year-olds in high school. It has to be a Pfizer. I'm glad this is happening. President Biden even said he's moving the rest of the country to the 19th on that. I was hoping he would have done that earlier, but we need to get rid of barriers. But for 16, 17, and 18-year-old high school students, encourage them to get vaccinated will be good. We can try testing the day of a match with the rapid test that Albany provides for free. I know we've had discussions about accuracy and stuff, but I think as we move further back into sports, just having something as a screen is something that we can do. And I think that that's reasonable. There's no way to social distance in wrestling. Just not. And you are up close and personal. You're sweating. There's saliva that gets out sometimes. There's sometimes all kinds of things that can happen while you're sliding on a mat or somebody is right in your face. The majority of from what I've seen, and I talked with Mathis earlier, the majority of our local teams are going to be participating. And I'm not sure what extra things they're doing. I hate to pick out one particular sport, but this is definitely a higher risk. So we make this as safe as possible. Parents have to understand there's risk involved. You have them sign a waiver that they're playing, understanding this is a high-risk sport. We're doing everything we can to make it less risky. These are absolute. Having a mask that's in place. I would encourage that if a mask comes off, the referee stops the match, gets the mask back on, and we have some strict rules about that, and perhaps some testing. But there's no way that the sport can be made non-up close and personal. But I think that's it in a nutshell, where we could approve it, or you could approve it, and I could recommend approving it if we try to follow these stricter guidelines.
And board, just to an FYI, again, we certainly can. We believe that we can certainly do the masking. We have the signed consent already set for all of the high risk sports in place. As far as the testing goes, so we have actually applied for our LSL, which allows us to be able to test here out of the school. We have the staff in place, and we can do the testing. We can do the antigen testing. We can do a variety of testing if the board so wishes to do that. The only thing that I would say is just that we need to keep in mind that we're not able to force people to test, right? So there may be some people who say, I don't want to do that. So we just want to keep that in mind. But we can certainly offer that if the board so wishes to do so. My recommendation at this time would be that provided that we put those things into place, that we can certainly try this and go with it. And if there's problems, we would go from there. Heather, I think I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just curious if the other school districts in our league are going ahead with wrestling. Do we know that? And if so, are they implementing these same safety procedures?
So as of right now, I know of 4 districts who are going ahead with the wrestling. I try not to give their names, but I do know of 4. And I know of one district who has actually said, we're on hold. We just don't know yet. This is of concern. All right. This is probably the highest of all the sports. That's what we know of right now. 4 who have said yes, 1 who has said no. Basically, the ones who have said yes, at least 2 of them have talked to me a little bit about can we do some testing. I think that at least one of those 2 will definitely try to do some testing. That person also has their LLS. They do have their ability to test kids for sure. So. Okay. Any other questions for me or Dr. Morgan on this at all?
I guess I have more of a comment / question. When I think about this, Dr. Morgan, it sounds as though, you're talking about the fall season of wrestling. We're talking about vaccinations. We're talking about being able to increase testing. You get more people, herd immunity, all that. As you were speaking, it sounded to me more like a future thing than a current thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to imply that.
No, it's not. No, not that you were saying it. It's just in my mind.
Because this can happen right now.
Yeah, because one of the things I'm thinking about, and I think we should be thinking about, is the fact that we are now changing our school in person to 4 days a week. So within the last 2 weeks, we're moving from a very hybrid model to a very in-person model, while at the same time trying to implement all of these high-risk sports, of which most of them are outdoors, most of them make sense, but the wrestling seems counterintuitive to me for everything that I see. And one of my concerns is that we're doing so much so fast, and if we had to hedge our bets, this is one of the places you can see, as you said, it's impossible to social distance. It's impossible. Once you get somebody in a particular head move, you're grappling, the mask will come off if it can stay on. And so I think about that in terms of watching some of our recent sports. We can't control what other teams do. I commend what our coaches and athletes have been doing. I've watched a lot of sports. I've seen them mask and be responsible. But I've also watched games where, and I'm not going to name a school or a sport, but every single person on the other team was not masking. And it was not stopped. A coach didn't say something. A referee didn't stop, as Dr. Morgan, you said, that the referee, stop it. They didn't do that. They played, I watched an entire game where the entire team didn't have a face mask on and nobody stopped it. So when we're talking about a sport this close in the conditions we're under, yes, we cannot make somebody take a test, but can we make them take a test to be able to participate? That might be another question. We can't make them test to come to school. I get that. You come to school, it's a privilege. But, testing for athletic, but we can't make other schools do that either.
No.
So I guess in long story short, I have some serious concerns about our ability to do wrestling in conjunction with trying to do all of our academic things at the same time. I hate the idea of putting a student athlete with high risk of exposure in a classroom 4 days a week, where asymptomatic is 30% of the people. So that's my 2 cents.
Understand. I think, Heather, did you have questions there or comments?
Yeah, I just wondered, I appreciate what Jim had to offer there, and I just wonder if, given the situation, if it wouldn't be worth exploring potentially for modified, not doing interscholastic competition, but maybe a more just internal intramural style program, or maybe even more conditioning than, I hate to completely say nothing, that they could have nothing, but maybe something more along those lines, and then prioritize a much smaller team, which is the varsity team. It might be make it a little more manageable that way anyways.
So an option that we could do, for sure. Yes, we could certainly do that. right? That would reduce the risk from 2 teams down to 1 team, at least for sure. Yes, we could do that. Tom, did you have your hand up, sir?
I was, yeah, just more along the lines of a statement, but I had something that I had gotten regarding Colorado athletics and what they did in terms of everybody had to be tested prior to competing in their championships. Basically, that's how they tried to control it. And then there was another article actually that I read regarding a Florida wrestling meet, where as a result of that one meet in the other schools and some kids being symptomatic or asymptomatic, they're being COVID positive, that they lost 1,700 school days combined between all the people that were infected and all the quarantining that needed to be done. So just dovetailing off what Heather has said, it might be a good way to look at that. We can mitigate the risk the best we can. It concerns me as well that I don't know as if you can do it completely. I don't even know with a mask if it's going to stay on. I know your headgear can, but that comes off, and a mask is going to be on if someone comes across. Is there anything design's going to work? Probably not. And the other concern that I have are the variants that are out there that are showing a little bit more where kids are a little bit more susceptible to these variants. So they're all things that we have to look at and throw into the hopper as far as consideration.
Are there any other comments or questions from any other board members there? Kathleen?
Yeah, I don't understand what Tom is saying. 1,700 school days. This has only been going on for a year, which is 365 days. I'm not understanding that data.
As a result of a meet, the school meet, there were 5 teams at the meet. The number of the kids that tested positive at that meet that then translated to the other schools, that translated to other classes, in total came up with 1,700 school days that were lost total. It wasn't in that district or that school. It was throughout Florida, and it resulted in the shutting down of schools. So it was the idea that there was one meet, there were a number of people. It's just the exponential growth of this. If you go from here and you plant it someplace else in another school, another classroom, and then it just grew that way. So that was just the concern that I was talking about.
It just seems kind of disingenuous to say 1,700. I know you didn't do it. I know it's something you read, but I just think it just seems like disingenuous to say they lost 1,700 school days when you only have 180 school days in a year. But whatever.
Well, if I could address that a little bit, the way this statistic comes is if there were 40 students in 3 schools and they had siblings, it's not how many days in a school year, it means total number of students that missed a day of school. So it's not 1,200 days in a year. They're not that many days, but there's enough. Each student may be responsible for 10 to 14 days missing. If you have 50 students, it's times the 14, then the number gets up there. That's how it gets larger. That's what the larger number is from.
All right. So, okay. Would there be any other comments at all from the board or feedback from the board?
I guess, Mathis, I'm just wondering what you're looking for from us. Are you looking for a motion? Are you looking for...
Yes. So I think if the board could certainly give us a motion. So I think everything else, we're all okay with. Would we have consensus on that? I think it's the wrestling that's the big thing. Am I correct, board? Right? Yes? So with respect to the wrestling, yes, if we could have a motion around the wrestling, so my recommendation is that we do that with the caveats of masking. We will do testing for that particular sport, and also the signed consent. And particularly, so I'm going to change this here on the spot and say just for varsity. And then with the modified, we'll do an intramural program to still offer them something. So that would be my recommendation. And yes, if we could get a motion and approval from the board, or a vote from the board rather, that would be great. Would that be okay?
Yes. So we're just looking for a motion first to approve Dr. Mathis's recommendation as he just stated.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Yeah, so are we going to mandate testing for all participants?
I think
And how many times a week?
Sure. So we can do testing for the participants. I don't believe that we have any legal right to mandate. We can't tell anybody that they must do the testing, but we can certainly, tell them why the rationale behind it, ask that they do it, share that we will provide the support. I think what we'll have is actually there'll be quite a few parents who will work with us on this. You may have one or two who say no, or you may have a couple who say no. I can do the testing at least up to 2 times a week for sure, without any difficulty. And I believe that's the number. Go ahead.
So no, I guess I'm not being clear. We can't mandate somebody gets tested. We can mandate that they get tested to participate.
We can't do that either. I don't believe that we have any legal right to say that you have to be tested in order to participate in athletics. To do so, we would have had to do that for everyone. You have to be fair with all kids. Everybody has to have the same expectation. And I don't believe, again, no, we don't. I would really venture to say we don't have the right to say you must test to participate, right? The same way with saying to a kid you must test in order to come to school, right? We don't have the right to do that, I would say.
Okay. Well, I bring it up because, as Tom mentioned, there was a state tournament, I believe it was out in Colorado, that was mandating testing for participants. But if we can't do that, I'm going to say that personally, I'm going to be against this motion. I think this is too high risk for our students. When we did the other high risk sports, I did a lot of homework. And I went and I thought, I play basketball. That's a high thing. But I looked at it and there wasn't a lot of data of spread within basketball. So some of these other sports that are considered high risk, before we approved them and I voted to approve them, I looked and there wasn't a lot of data out there that talked about spread in those sports. So I supported them. It's the exact opposite here with wrestling. You can do very preliminary work and find a lot of cases where COVID is spread by wrestling. And given the fact that we're trying to get everybody in 4 days a week, I want us to focus on our academics and our athletics where it makes sense. So personally, I'm just going to say I don't think we should be supporting wrestling in any form this season. If the students can get other kind of conditioning, as we talked about, any student can go and hit the weight room or go do calisthenics or other running or whatever it may be. If we can come up with those other programs, I think that's great and we should be doing it. But we should not have people on a mat wrestling. That's just going to be my opinion.
Okay.
Rhonda, can you give us a ballpark as to how many athletes would probably sign up for varsity wrestling? So we know how many people we're talking about.
It's tough to say because we've never had wrestling during the spring season. So kids are going to have to choose between lacrosse, baseball, tennis. We have a lot of offerings in the spring. So it's really hard to tell how many will actually be choosing between wrestling and lacrosse. And I don't know which way to go. So that's kind of tough to say. Our team in the past has been small. So that I wish I could give a number, but I don't think it would be a real accurate number. So maybe
can you share
8 to 10 at the most.
Okay.
What?
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking it would be.
Yeah, maybe 8. Yeah, maybe 8 to 10. Those students may then choose another spring sport, but I'm not positive.
Thank you. Okay, is there any other discussion? Karen, could you do a roll call vote on this motion, please?
I sure can. Kathleen Allen?
Yes.
Tom Chapa?
No.
Heather Del Conte?
Yes.
Pamela Dowd?
Yes.
Lisa Glidden,
No.
Jim McKenzie,
No.
Linda Serino.
No.
The vote has failed, 3 yeses to 4 noes.
Okay, so we have to modify the recommendation, Dr. Calvin.
May I offer, maybe for both modified and varsity, maybe some kind of a intramural or some kind of a program for them to keep them up with conditioning or some of the strategies. Can we try something like that for the kids? I certainly can do that, which would not require them to wrestle, would not require them to have the contact, those kinds of things, but it still gives them something, at least as we move through the year. Would that be acceptable to the board? We can certainly do that for sure.
Okay, so to be clear, that what we're looking for is a first for his recommendation, as he just stated with that modification for wrestling.
I'm sorry, who did the first motion?
I think it was Pam.
I think it was Pam. Yeah. Yep. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Oh.
Okay. How about some discussion?
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just wondering how this looks in comparison to what we've done before.
So what I'm thinking is we can do put together like an intramural kind of program that deals with strengthening some of the things that they might normally do in wrestling. We can have some of the instructors kind of work with the kids around some of those different moves, body conditioning, those types of things. We haven't done that for wrestling specifically before. We've done some things for some of our other sport teams to help. And I think we could certainly do that. We can get our trainer together with Rhonda and create something really good for our kids. I think we could certainly do that. And we could actually have the wrestling coach help or assist with that. I think that there's certainly something that we can do for that, for sure. Right?
So, but you're saying probably not actually wrestling, correct?
They would not wrestle with each other. They would not have any contact with each other in that way. But all the conditioning things that they would go through to prepare for the wrestling, I believe that we could certainly do something like that in an intramural kind of way for our kiddos, for sure. I think we could do that.
So more strength, fitness type things. How are we integrating in modified and varsity? Are they going to be separate? I noticed on our agenda in the future here, we have 3 coaches who are, being listed if we would have voted for actual interscholastic wrestling, and how the strength trainer weighs in. So I know I may be getting ahead of our talk about voting on the coaches, but voting on this, I think, ties in on how we would staff that.
Okay. How about if we do this? We have another meeting coming up on I think the 20th of the month. What if it be all right with the board, could we maybe table this, and then I can have a little more time to talk about this with Rhonda, with our team, and create the right program, get it out there, in terms of posting and everything, and then make sure that when we come back together, it'd be a little bit better organized. I don't want to just kind of go from the hip. It might be better to kind of think this through a little bit, so that way I can answer your question better, Jim. Would that be all right with the board? All right. So I think
Sorry, Matthew. I think what we'll do under those circumstances then is maybe ask Pam to pull her motion.
I will.
We will go back. Okay, great. So we've pulled the motion, and then Dr. Calvin, if your recommendation could just be all sports with the removal of wrestling, we'll table that issue and just have our motion reflect your recommendation vis-a-vis the other sports.
Okay.
Will that work?
That's wonderful. If that's okay with you all. My recommendation would be all the rest of the sports with the removal of wrestling. And we'll come back to the next meeting around the wrestling piece. Okay?
Very good. Okay, can I get a first for that?
I will move that.
Lisa, thank you. Second.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? Okay, I don't know that we need a roll call vote, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion is passed.
Okay. All right. So we have Dr. Morgan here. Just want to make sure if there's any other questions for Dr. Morgan before we let him go and go on to our next guest there.
I did. I had some quick questions for you, Dr. Morgan, regarding the new procedure in terms of signing our portal for the Family ID. And there's obviously some new questions that we haven't had to answer before. The COVID questions, I understand, even some of the additional, maybe more sensitive questions, but I really don't understand and kind of react negatively towards those questions that revolve around a girl's cycle. And I completely understand the association with cycles and osteoporosis and some of those bone density issues, but they aren't exact correlations. And those questions were something that a patient or maybe a patient and their parent talked to their own physician about. And then it got, may or may not have landed on a physical form and then handed to the school district via the nurse. I guess I do react negatively to having to answer those questions on a portal. They're very, very personal questions.
Well, I agree. Certain things I don't think should be on a portal. The idea of for a female about a menstrual cycle has a lot to do with safety and for the student in participating in a sport. Men and women go through puberty in different stages. Women have more markers than men do. As a general rule of thumb, when you've had your first menstrual cycle, you grow for approximately 2 more years, where men or boys becoming men grow for a longer period of time. The menstrual cycle is very much related to bone density, but it's also a very important component of what for years have been called the female athlete triad, which is bone density, your menstrual cycle, and also your caloric intake, depending upon what sport you're doing. There's a much higher incidence of anorexia in women than men. It's almost and certain sports, gymnastics, dance, ice skating, have a very high incidence of anorexia. So sometimes women during a sports season may have regular cycles, and then all of a sudden they stop having a regular cycle. Some sports like long distance runners may go a year or 2 without a cycle as an adult, but not so much when they're going through their adolescent changing. This is a lot related to the Tanner scaling, where we, and for men, a male who starts their pubertal change later, you don't want, even if they have some skills, if they're Tanner 1, you don't want them playing football against a Tanner 5 guy who weighs 127 pounds more than he does. He's going to break some bones. He's going to be seriously injured. Female athletes, if they were having regular cycles and then stopped having them, it could be an indication that they're not eating enough calories, that there is some anorexia there. But that's really part of whoever's doing the clearance. It shouldn't be on a portal anywhere. When I fill out a sports form, it's to be placed in a person's file that they've been approved, but it shouldn't be anywhere else. This is a provider and a patient's visit evaluating for safety in a sport. And for women, we have a few extra questions to ask about, and we have an extra marker. Menarche is very important. If a woman has not had one by the time they're 15 to 16, we have to think about other things that may have not been noticed before that we want to work up. If somebody was very regular, and then they're not, that could be a sign of the anorexia. Are they getting enough calories? A lot of women mature much earlier. A good number of 15-year-old women are already women, even though they're still children by their age, where the number of boys that are 15 and not real men is at least 3 times as high, so you can't equate the two things. Men don't have as clear a marker. So that menstrual cycle is important. It's part of the triad. It's part of knowing safety for that athlete. but it has no business being on a portal. It should be a private kind of thing. So perhaps there's two questions going on. It's very important for athletic safety and should not be ignored. And whoever is doing the physicals, the healthcare provider, that's part of their questioning, and it's important.
Okay, that's all I appreciate that, Dr. Morgan. That's exactly what my concern was, because obviously, as a dialogue between a patient and their doctor, it makes a lot of sense. But if a doctor has that conversation with their female athlete patient and still checks the form that everything's a go for them to participate in a sport, I would think that when it gets to your office, you wouldn't second guess that. A number of points also is that we don't really have any of the sports you listed, and wrestling actually is one of the sports that has the highest incident of anorexia, ironically. So, and that's predominantly male.
It's a different type, actually.
But it's predominantly male. I'm just saying that so we can't be hypocritical with that, is what I'm saying.
No, I didn't say it was zero. I said it's much higher with women.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so, I understand that, and if it can be just a conversation between a female athlete and their doctor, and then they sign the paper, and then it goes through to the school district, and the school district okays it, that makes sense to me. But having to answer the question on our family ID portal, to me, and it was 4 questions that I felt very invasive, doesn't make sense to me. So, Jim, did you have a question to add?
Again, it's kind of a question / comment. It seems to me a bit of semantics because the question's already asked by the physician completed health form. And Dr. Morgan speaking about the tanner made me think of that. When the student's physician completes the form, that has a tanner indication 1 through 5 that the doctor must check off on it. So the school district is already receiving the information in broad strokes regarding the tanner staging, in that it may be that the specific questions of the last menses or first menses is maybe a little more probative than people are comfortable with, and I get that. But it's also kind of the Department of Redundancy department in a sense. It does get to maybe talking about regularity, but theoretically, as Heather mentioned, the physician is speaking to the patient and the patient's parent about that. The fact that we've already gathered the tanner stage information, it's actually already in the portal. So just say portal versus non-portal. The portal questions are the check questions that, again, I agree with Heather, are very probative, especially as you're filling them out right there. But as part of the portal, you must submit the doctor's health form, and that already contains the tanner stages. So it seems to me as that information is redundant and can probably just stay with the doctor's form.
That's what I would like to see happen. Absolutely. I agree with you. And just for all you guys out there, it is an incredibly personal thing to ask all of those questions. So.
Okay. Kathleen, I think you had a question.
Not a question. Just can we look at the family ID portal and just see if those questions can be marked optional? Because it is, I submit my physical, my doctor takes care of my kids, and that's a mandatory thing. So can we look at the portal itself? Because that seems to be the issue, and just see if those can be just marked optional so that parents can be more comfortable and the students can be more comfortable.
Okay. Sure, I understand the request. I will look into this tomorrow, and I'll get an answer before the week's out. So I think what I'm hearing people say is there's already one way to get the information because the document is submitted already, and do we need to actually have the questions on top of the document that's submitted? I understand. I will check on this tomorrow, and before the week's out, I'll make sure the board knows where we stand with it. Okay, does that help?
And thank you. Yes, and thank you, Dr. Morgan, for your information.
Sure. Okay. All good? All set? Dr. Morgan? Okay. Dr. Morgan, thank you for coming on and being a part of it.
Have a good night, everybody.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody. Okay. We'll go to the next slide now. Thank you. All right. All right, very good. So, board, we're going to shift now and talk a little bit about security, and then we have one additional topic that deals with our budget. We have, Mike, are you on with us right now? Make sure Mike Gayette is on with us. I'm trying to see.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, Mike. Nice to talk with you tonight. All right, we have Mike Gayette. There we go. We have him on video now. Mike is the director of the SRO program for the county sheriff department. So we asked him to join us this evening just to have a discussion around our security. So currently we are in a time where we really have a moment that we can capture some changes around security. And I wanted to share a little bit with the board what's happening right now. So our structure has been, over the last couple of years, we've had an SRO officer who's basically been stationed at the high school. We've had 3 security staff members, one of which was staggered to try to accommodate evening events. And we've had some sheriff support up in the Minetto area whenever that was needed, basically to help us with our schools. The structure has worked in some ways, but has had some challenges in other ways. Right now, we have a security staff member, if you recall, a couple weeks ago, who retired. He was a 12-month employee. And then we also had a school security member who resigned and took another position within the district, so no longer in security. And we have a concern right now that has arisen around the SRO cost. So currently, we receive SRO services and supports through the city of Oswego. However, the cost for those supports are going to have to go up significantly, basically. What we've been basically paying for is the entry salary of a newer police officer. The person that we currently have is actually a very experienced police officer who's doing a fantastic job. She's great. And also, she's a sergeant with the police department. And so the costs from the city are really significantly higher. The city has reached out to me, and we've had some conversations about that. And so really at this point in time, what we would be looking at is certainly a rise in the cost, a little bit higher than much higher than where we have been at in the past. And so because of all of these different things, we've been looking at our security structure. And one of the things that we want to do is make sure that we have more support in our schools, or at least the support level that we have, if not more. We do believe that there's certainly more support that would be needed around the district that we could use extra help with. We wanted to make sure that we had a highly experienced security staff to support our kids and our district with, and we also wanted to realize efficiencies if that might be possible. So one of the things we know is we don't need a 12-month employee. We really need at least a 10-month person at this point in time. And then 2, we have an opportunity now to work on some things. The county sheriff's department offers school resource officers at a much lesser price than what we're paying right now. Year 1, there are some costs to start up, but then year 2, the cost goes down even more, basically. So I invited tonight with us Mike Gayette, who is from the sheriff's office, who handles all school resource officers. And I've asked him to just share a little presentation with the board and an overview of, what is available through the sheriff's office. Mike, welcome, and please go right ahead. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. The presentation that I submitted should be up somewhere.
Yep. Mike, just tell us whenever you want us to go to the next page. Matt, go to the next page, please.
There we go. Okay. So, as Dr. Calvin already mentioned, my name is Deputy Gaeta. I've worked for the Oswego County Sheriff's Office for the last 20 years. Recently, with a new administration, the sheriff's big issue was a school resource officer program that was never in place in the county. So for the last 2 years, we've had this program in place. I built the entire program from budget to staff for the sheriff. And so we've had some really great success, but that's another story altogether. So we'll go ahead and start. Go ahead with the next page, please. So who we hire and who we have to hire. Civil service says that we have to hire retired law enforcement people. These people are police officers, retired, and civil service has the requirement in the job description that they have to be retired. I currently have 1 trooper, 1 Syracuse City detective, homicide detective of 30 years, He's one of my best guys. He's working out of BOCES. And a couple other Syracuse Cities people and one of our retired members from our agency. So they come from all walks. It's not just one agency we grab our people from. Again, we have to sit and interview these people and make sure that they're qualified to take the job. Next slide, please. How do we hire them? Well, we interview them, and the district is heavily involved. Most of our success comes from involving the districts that we work with. Sandy Creek, Hannibal, Mexico BOCES, our city BOCES. We also have an officer at the 4th Street School at the request of BOCES. So we involve the districts heavily. We have the superintendent and the team of his choice come into the sheriff's office conference room and interview the people that we put forth. So the sheriff, myself, and the undersheriff interview candidates, and we put forth the best qualified people. And then we let we bring the district in, and the district makes all the decisions. It's that simple. If you people don't like who we put in front of you, then we go back to the drawing board and we find more people, and hopefully somebody who's acceptable for you guys so that it's a good fit. Next slide, please. So knowing what's out there and my training background and my experience, I work for several different agencies for the state of New York, so I know what's out there. These guys will go through a 40-hour basic school to be a school resource officer. New York State is working on making that a mandate because school resource officers and these programs have blown up pretty big across New York State. So they're going to, DCJS wants to get involved, the Department of Criminal Justice Services in New York State wants to get involved in mandating curriculum so that there's a continuity of training. And so that's coming. And I'm on the panel that's developing that course for them. So we're working hand in hand with them to do that. They'll get taser training. They get Narcan, Article 35, de-escalation, all the stuff that's out there now in the law enforcement venue. We make sure that they get it all. And we'll get to numbers in a minute, but we make no money doing this. The sheriff does not. This is not a revenue stream for the sheriff's office. It actually cost him money. Uniforms cost him money. Lettering cars for school resource officers cost him money. It's not a money thing for the sheriff. He is more concerned with the safety of students in schools in his county. So that's what he brings to the table. Next slide, please. Again, more training. Active shooter, which a lot of people don't like to talk about. We conducted the biggest training that there was in this county with the state police, the federal agencies in the county, and we did it up at Sandy Creek. The superintendent gave me his school, which I'm pretty sure he's sorry he did that now because we made a mess. But he was good enough to host us, and we did all that training up there. We trained fire departments. So we also trained the county's mass casualty policy, and we did all that hand in hand with all the county officials here, and that was good stuff. And we had school resource officers, state police, active guys, everybody in the county who was law enforcement, and then all the fire agencies and all the EMS people as well. And that's more of the stuff that they'll be trained in before they come. Before they go to any school district, we have to train them on our policies because they come from other agencies. So they need to know how we do things, reporting and evidence collection and such. Next slide. We can't do any of this without an MOU. So the MOU is something that governs what we expect from our districts, what our districts expect from us, and we come to an understanding. The county attorney views the MOU, as will your or the district's attorneys, to make sure that everything's on the up and up. And that's signed by county legislators, the sheriff himself, and then the district that we work with. Next slide. We also have a policy that we share with our districts, what the role of the SRO is, establish the program parameters, and the MOU does the same thing. We track their activity. They do a daily log sheet for me every day. And then at the end of their pay period, which is 2 weeks, and they're 10-month employees, they only work when school's in session. That information comes back to me. I compile that information in a database, and I give the sheriff that every 2 weeks he gets a report on what's going on. And I make that available to all my superintendents. Some of them choose to take it. Some of them don't. That's totally up to them to see what where the activity is in their districts. Next slide. So the cost of the program, I break the cost of the program down in Schedule A, which I'll go over it. We can get in depth if you'd wish, or I can give you some solid numbers. Their salary is $45,000 for the school year, and that covers their training, their firearms qualifications, their certifications to become an. And they're available. We make them available to the districts on the 1099 basis. So it doesn't affect the MOU at all. The MOU states this is their salary, this is what they get paid, this is how we do things. If a district wants them outside of that for a game, an event, or what have you, that's totally fine with us and the sheriff. And their rate would be $39.24, and then we would you guys would 1099 them, which keeps the MOU whole and lets you guys use them when you need them, instead of us worrying about overtime and calculating for overtime, or having you calculate for overtime. That's just easier for everybody. Next slide.
So, Matt, actually, if you go back for just a moment, so Mike, your next slide had cost analysis down there
Yep.
with equipment.
Okay, so I could move right to that for you.
Okay.
So the total year cost for one SRO is $70,709.69. That is a start-up cost. That's what it would cost for us to outfit somebody with all the equipment and uniforms and the training, all the training, SRO school, active shooter training, taser, firearms, everything we would need to bring them up to speed. And then that's the startup cost. And then to maintain the program, it goes down to $58,428.83. The difference is the startup cost. We have to hire somebody, we have to outfit them, we have to equip them with everything that they would need, and so that's where your costs come from.
Great.
The difference in cost.
Okay, and then Matt, you can go to the next slide there. Nancy, did you want to talk through this a little bit there?
Sure. This is the current security budget that we have. As you can see, we're planning for a decrease in our school security. That is due to the retirement of a longtime employee. So that budget line is going to go down. Our hourly security is also going down. We're not getting as much overtime from the security staff doing all of the extra work. Overtime is also planned to decrease. Contractual expenditures, we do have 2 sheriffs in the budget for next year. So that will be an increased cost over what we had planned over our current SRO of $71,420. In-district travel is flat. Conference travel is flat. That's used for training our employees. And supplies is also flat. So overall, with the inclusion of 2 sheriffs and 2 of our own security staff, the budget is planned to go down, if accepted, by $8,480.
And the next year, because the costs go down from the $70,000 price down now to the $58,000 price, you'd see even more savings as well for it, right? So you'd end up with 2 SROs versus 1 SRO, and you'd still have another person. So we'd have 4 people. We currently have 4 people as our security team, but now you would have 4 people again, but at least 2 of those people have a higher level of training and a higher level of securing places because, again, they have a background in law enforcement, right? Mike, did you want to add anything else to that at all?
No, sir. I'll be able to answer any questions if anybody had any.
Okay. Matt, you want to go to the next slide there? And then I think I see, I'm sorry, go one more, Matt. Okay. So Heather, go right ahead, man.
Yeah, so full disclosure, when this concept came up at the legislative level, one of my concerns was having officers from our area. Are we guaranteed to have an officer that comes from at least our county?
Yes, we had an issue early on with getting people who were qualified for the job and fit the job description in the county. So we had to go to the legislator and ask them for permission to hire outside the county. So if we have qualified people that are within the county, that's the sheriff's first choice.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Lisa, I think you had a question there?
I think Pam was in before me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Pam, then Lisa. My apologies.
No problem. Thanks, Lisa. Just forgive me. It sounds too good to be true. What am I missing? It sounds too good to be true, so I should ask it.
I would say that I would encourage you to reach out to other school districts to just check for yourself. I mean, I have guys that kids are coming to school late. My guys are buying them alarm clocks. Kids are coming to school hungry. My guys are going around the corner and buying them a box of food at Dollar General. I would go ahead and do all the research you guys need to do. Ask other school districts how we do what we do, and I'll let you be the judge.
Yeah. And I would say we certainly have done some research and done some reference checking with other districts. And certainly we do hear nothing but great things. So in addition to getting some additional help and support from our officers, you also have people who've got a great background again in law enforcement who know what to do when things arise. And there's a significant cost savings for districts throughout the county, which I think has certainly made a big difference. So basically what we would be getting is really like two people for almost the price of one as we kind of move forward, basically, with the department. So yeah, it does sound too good to be true, but it is true.
But the cost savings, if I may too, the cost savings come from benefits.
Right.
The retirees, they're getting their benefits already.
Right.
That's a huge issue, and why the sheriff was just so excited when the job description came out, because civil services, they have to be retired. They're already getting their benefits. We give them waivers so that they could make that salary, and they're just happy to do the job. If I had to fire one of my guys, it would break their heart. The schools love them. They love their jobs, and it's really working out. We've been very fortunate.
Yeah, I'm a fan of SRO. I have no issue with it. I was in the school before we had one, and then definitely after, and there's a huge difference. It is a huge benefit. But yeah, like I said, was that they're retired, and it's the benefits is because that's always driving up the cost. So thank you for clarifying. That's why it sounds so good to be true, but that's the difference right there. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Lisa, and then I think I see Linda as well.
Yeah, so thank you very much for that presentation. I have a lot of philosophical problems with having SROs in schools. Okay. Somewhere between 30 and 50% of schools around the country have SROs. It rose, the presence of having police or retired police in schools rose in the 1990s with the shift to zero tolerance policing, and then Columbine kind of pushed it over the edge, and people were worried about security. So my concerns are both on the philosophical level about the securitization of our schools, which I have concerns with, but I also have concerns with the fact that we already know that our criminal justice system is really skewed against people who don't have the resources to deal with the criminal justice system. And something like this figure that I saw is 67% of the kids in juvenile detention actually got there from going through the school system. And I'm sure everyone has heard the term about the prison to school pipeline. And so my concern with being in a high poverty district I know from speaking with my neighbors, they don't understand the law and they don't understand their rights, and they often get them caught up in very bad ways, is really concerning to me. On the other side of things, I totally understand the importance of having kids, especially who maybe don't have a very good experience or life history with law enforcement, to get those good experiences down. I'm not sure that having whether it be someone like, if we have kids who don't have alarm clocks and who don't have food, like as much as that like personalistic thing of getting them food is, I'm sure, really appreciated, it also speaks to much larger structural problems that we should be addressing ourselves. And so that's my concerns.
Valid concerns. Your data's pretty solid. Although I would caution you as to the governor's report that came out. Just when you give facts and statistics and then on the next page you contradict yourself, be wary where your data comes from. That would be my only thing. We do what we can to humanize the police. We're not here to throw an 11-year-old who's having a bad day in the back of a police car with handcuffs. That would be the object reverse of what we're trying to accomplish. Sometimes we have to do what police officers do, but we let the district take the lead. The district has more legal authorities constitutionally, search and seizure wise. We let the district take the lead, and we'll stand there and help and do what we can. But we don't put them in a uniform with a badge and a gun belt. They wear a gun belt, but they're wearing what I wear right now. So we do what we can to humanize the police and stop that so-called prison to pipeline issue. We'd rather help you than throw you in jail.
Right. And I totally get that. But, we just also had a conversation about girls not being able to play sports because their period's not regular enough. And so that physically is going to impact them. Sure. And these SROs are going through taser training. Have those been tested on adolescents? I mean, and Mike, I'm sorry, this is not meant to be toward you. This is a much bigger thing. I mean, I've
been doing this for a long time, and I'm pretty sure I field a lot of questions, and your questions are, if they're valid to you, they're valid to me. Yes, they have been thoroughly tested. The data on how tasers can cause injuries is it's out there. It's available. Taser itself, actually, we use the X26, and that data is readily available. In the last 2 years, we've had to tase 0 11-year-olds. So the data is pretty solid there for our program. That's just something that a police officer wears, and that's how they're outfitted. They are police officers, and they are outfitted with everything that I would outfit a road guy with: a radio, a firearm, 2 magazines, a taser, pepper spray. None of my guys have ever had to use any of that ever. So that's what they wear. That's what I would recommend. I'm not going to put my people in a school district without the ability to protect themselves, the teachers, and the students.
Okay. Linda, did you have a question there?
I think Tom's before me.
Okay. I'm sorry, I can't see Tom there. Tom?
Yeah, it's not as philosophical or as involved. It was more the financial aspect as to what we are doing currently in terms of handling coverage of sporting events and things like that. So with that hourly, is that already considered, Nancy, in our, in our salaries and in our usage right now? It's not construed as overtime, right? But so would we be adding on additional hours to this?
Tom, there's an additional $5,000 in the line under the contractual line for any extras that we would ask the sheriffs to do.
Okay, and currently, how do we handle that currently, Nancy, in terms of it's just part of the job description?
Right. So right now, we do use our teachers to monitor games. They have a small stipend. We do use security when they do take the overtime for the games. Sometimes we do call OPD, but this will allow us to utilize personnel that the students are becoming familiar with.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Linda?
Mike, my question is, we do go through the hiring process, and sometimes we goof. Sometimes we hire people that don't fit the bill. What happens? What's your process by, when you go out and you interview new retired police officers, and let's say it's their first 3 months on the job, and they don't have that interpersonal skill to connect with kids. What's your process as the director in navigating this? If it's somebody we don't want.
No, it's pretty straightforward. If you guys aren't happy with let's say we hire somebody and then we get them in the school and you guys aren't happy with them, then we pull them out and we fire them. It's that simple. We don't. The MOU allows us to do that. Okay. The MOU allows you guys to come to us and say, "Listen, we're not happy," and then we resolve it. If we can't resolve it through conversation, then we just replace the person. But we've had great success with the people that we've chosen, and they're snapped up right away. So we're confident in who we bring to you. I'm not going to bring you a retired SWAT guy who comes in there with body armor. It's just not. It's not going to be who we bring you. We're confident that we can bring in somebody who's qualified and is interested in the well-being of the kids. It's a different type of policing. This goes to Lisa's point. There's policing, and then there's community policing. It's relatively that simple. Mm-hmm. This is a community policing job.
Yeah. And I understand, that I just had to ask that question. What's the process?
Sure.
If in fact we happen to get someone that wasn't a fit.
Sure. So that's all governed by the MOU that you guys would, I believe, let me see, it's in writing. You guys would submit something to us in writing, and then we would meet, and then we would take whatever corrective actions necessary.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Okay, I saw Pam, and then I see Kathleen's hand up.
Thank you. Great question, Linda. I just have a comment. The policing, it's not policing. We don't really have a lot of criminals walking around our schools. It's a lot of de-escalation. De-escalating is really a lot of what school resource officers do. Aside from helping out with an alarm clock or the food or whatever. But yeah, they become a school community member with these kids. And that's what they do the most of, is de-escalate a situation. And they're good at it. And it's something that's really needed in our schools.
We do provide that too. We provide, there's actually with police reform and the police reform package that the sheriff submitted to the legislature, that's huge. And again, the sheriff takes on the cost of that. I mean, I might need to pull them out of the district for a day to do firearms or de-escalation, but we provide that training because that's what we do program-wise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Pam, yes, you've highlighted a couple of things. They support in a variety of ways. De-escalating. They work with some of our parents who are having some concerns and need support. They provide some of the wraparound services. There are, kids and families that we do have who need supports, and this is a wraparound service that they may be a part of to help. They build relationships with kids. They help us also with truancy issues. They support, as I said already, our parents. They assist with any, if there are criminal issues that are going on, they certainly are there to assist. They also help to secure our schools. They can support us with drills. And also they do assist also with instruction. What's really wonderful is that many times our officers will be in classrooms and they'll help to teach on certain topics that involve community policing. And so they do provide a lot of support. We have officers who are in already who are also doing things like DARE, and just safety kinds of strategies, bike safety, walking in neighborhood, all kinds of safety curriculum they also support with. Kathleen, I think your hand was up, and then I see Heather's.
Yes, I'm in favor of your whole proposal, and I appreciate the way that you went about doing this. And thank you, a deputy for
Mike
being here.
Fine. I've been a deputy for 20 years. Mike is fine.
Okay. But as a parent I've got my fourth child in the high school currently, and I've been in that building when things have gone down. It's, just, through the board and through being in the kids. It's about relationships, this whole SRO. And that's why I'm a big fan of this SRO, because it's about forming relationships. And that's what our security officers have done as well. And I've seen them de-escalate situations. I've seen the way they've handled that. And that's what they're trained to do. The other thing that is so important in the SRO is if there is a situation, teachers are only allowed to do so much with a student, and right. The SROs are trained to be able to handle a kid running, out of a building, and yep. The SROs are trained to do that and stop them from hurting themselves, where our teachers are trained in a certain way, but they're not allowed to do certain things that may right. be necessary. So I appreciate that. And I've seen the benefit of Officer Grover being in the school doing CPR on a student and literally saving his life. And so I'm a big fan, and I think it's important. I mean, this whole year we have spent so much money protecting and in putting the safety of our children on, in the forefront of everything that we're doing. And this is just one more way to provide safety for our students and our staff and faculty. So I'm a fan.
And I can give you this without the sheriff getting annoyed with me, because I'm pretty sure at this point I speak for him. Our home visits for our students who participate with the sheriff's office increased 300% since last year. So they're going to homes and checking on the kids and delivering. They're helping with food delivery initially when the pandemic started. Who doesn't have a Chromebook? Who's got a broken Chromebook? Our home visits went up 300% since last year.
And I think that speaks to one of Lisa's points, which was, when she talks to her neighbors, then they're not educated in this stuff. I think this helps in that they form a relationship with these officers, and they can ask them questions, and those officers are looking out for them. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Heather?
Yeah, I also just really appreciate all of the internal benefits. I think there's just many overlapping benefits that have been described. I'm wondering, is there any data or research in terms of the SROs being a deterrent strategy for external harm coming in? And because I think, you're talking about both things. One is being that internal support and being there to keep everyone safe inside, but also it's also a reflection of us being kind of fearful of external harm coming in. So is there any data or just maybe even anecdotal information about that as a deterrent?
There has never been a school shooting where somebody was armed inside the building. Now, the shooting in Florida at the high school, he was outside. And it's funny that you mentioned that, but your threat's going to come from inside. You're already letting them in. You know what I mean? And so having them a deterrent, and the sheriff is also willing to provide a car to the district at no cost to the district. So having that car outside, the sheriff's car outside the front of the building, is a huge deterrent. 9 out of 10 people who want to go inside and do harm are afraid to be challenged. So with a school resource officer in the building with the means to defend the people inside the building, they're going to look elsewhere for something easier, because they're all about increasing numbers. How many people can I get with less effort, with minimum effort, and then walk away, possibly, like the last shooting in Florida. So I could get you numbers. I just don't have them right now. But I've not heard of any one school shooting where they've actually gained entry into the building and engaged the school resource officer the first thing. It's what they look for the opposite.
That's kind of what I'm looking for. I think it'd be really difficult to determine how many people were deterred from, doing a shooting because of an SRO officer, because you just wouldn't know. But that is enough to understand that. Then my second question is, so we'll have two. amongst all of the buildings?
So our thought right now is we would have one at the high school, one at the middle school. However, they could still rotate, go around, check on the district, see how things are. We want all of our kids to become familiar with our officers, right? So certainly we'll be rotating, moving people around. But in terms of their stationed area, we would like to station high school, middle school, and again, get them moving around. Everybody gets to see them, gets to know them, have them doing checking in addition to the other two people that we would have as well, right? I hope that answered your question. All right. Any other questions for the deputy here tonight? Zeta, I think, did I see Zeta's hand go up?
Yeah, just as a student, I think my peers and I have had conversations about concerns about having this kind of presence in our schools. And I was just wondering, could you kind of detail what an interaction between an SRO and a student would look like when it comes to things like de-escalation?
Well, that's a good question. We're pretty much there for you to listen to you. Are you talking about a fight between two students, or are you just talking about somebody who's having a bad day?
I was particularly imagining, I know at the high school is probably at the rate that we have most like physical fights. That's what I was imagining, but if you could explain both, that would be great.
I can just tell you what the guys report to me. So if somebody's having a bad day, instead of going to the principal's office for discipline, the school resource officer will have them come to his office or her office for lunch. As far as a fight goes, it depends on the stage of the fight. If two people are going at it, then the school resource officer will physically pull them apart if need be to separate them from each other, and then take one and put the other one in a separate location, and then let everything calm down and talk to one and then go talk to the other one. So there's various ways that they interact with students, and it's all positive. Most of these guys get accosted in the lunchroom. Come sit with me. This is what we're doing this weekend. We've had all very positive interactions with students, even ones that are having bad days that just want somebody to talk to. Believe it or not, these guys are busier than some of the counselors in some of the districts that we work in, and they're happy to do what they do. They're there to listen to you. You need a ride home, or you're stuck late, or whatever it is. It's just, they're there for you guys, and they're there to make things easier on the superintendent and the district and the teachers.
Thank you.
Kathleen?
Yeah, I just want to say, just from my observation over the years with, when my oldest started the high school, when she first started the high school, there were some issues with gangs in our district. And that was when I started on the board, there was no SRO at that time. He had retired, or they had eliminated that position, whatever. But there were we did have security. But then once we had an SRO come back on, our security guys were great. I've seen them de-escalate situations too. But from having, like I said, this is my fourth child in that building, I have seen a big difference in the, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but just the lack of incidents, I guess.
The atmosphere is better.
Yes, thank you, Pam. From when my daughter first started all those years ago.
And we found that not putting them in a uniform and sticking a badge on their chest, so they'll wear something very similar to what I have on. And so it's kind of like we try to humanize them as much as we possibly can, that we're there to help you, not arrest you because you're having a bad day. That's some of the stigmas that are attached to law enforcement, and it's only gotten worse. And I get it, believe me. But I've been to it. When I used to work the road, I wore a uniform, and I'd be in a diner, and I'd be eating, and I'd hear mom tell her 3-year-old, if you don't finish your vegetables, he's going to lock you up. I have to stop eating, and then I have to go tell mom, please don't tell your child that, because if he's ever missing, God forbid, he's not going to come to me because you made me the green bean boogeyman. So it's the stigma that we fight. I've been fighting it for years, and this program has had a lot of success. And like I said before, I encourage you guys to talk to the people that we deal with already.
Okay. All right. Board, are there any other questions or any other concerns or comments before we?
Sorry, Dr. Calvin. I've just been kind of taking some notes here, so just a kind of couple clarifications here. We'd have 2 people from the sheriff's department and then 2 of our own security officers.
Yes, sir.
Where would they be stationed?
Right. So one is normally at the high school as well. And then another one would be going between the elementary schools, right? So I think, and that model, by the way, can change from year to year depending upon what the needs are in the district. But our thought is we have one guy kind of moving around at our elementary schools, the SRO officer, one at the middle school, one at the high school, but yet they're also moving around so that people see them present throughout the daytime as opposed to at only a certain time. And then keep in mind that one of our staff members, again, we may have to look at the shift, right? Because we may need them to help us with those evening activities that are going on as well, too. Again, just a reminder, so we currently have 4 people. This would, again, give us 4 people, just 2 of which SROs and 2 of which is our own folks right now.
Right. Great, thank you. And so to piggyback on kind of what Kathleen was saying, it was wonderful. More than wonderful. Officer Grover was where he was when that happened a year or 2 ago. But there are other people in the schools that are trained in CPR. There are people who are trained at all levels in full body restraint. Now, granted, the elementary teachers who do full body restraint, they're the ones much more comfortable. Sometimes not. Some of our kids getting up 5th, 6th grade even, they get pretty big, right? And I can see where our teachers in high school, they don't want to be involved in full body restraint. But, I just want to put out there, because we're not covering all of our schools at all the time. There are teachers, there are staff who are trained in a runner from school, in full body restraints, in CPR, in life support. So, just again, it was wonderful that Officer Grover was there, but what made me think of it was Kathleen mentioning that instance. So I wanted to bring that up. So our schools still have people that are not our school resource officers, who are not our security people, who are still there for the life and welfare of our kids. But with that, is this going to affect DARE at all? Because again, when Kathleen said Officer Grover has been if I'm correct on that, he's been involved with our DARE program. So would this change that relationship with Oswego PD?
At this point in time, we don't think so. However, that's certainly something that we'll need to talk with them about. I have talked with Deputy Gaeta as well about if we need to have DARE, would they be willing to help us and assist us with that as well? So they've said yes, they can help us. So one way or the other, our goal is to continue that partnership with the DARE program, whether it's through the city or through the county.
Great. Okay, and I'll try to make these couple more brief. Deputy Gaeta, thank you for your presentation. I've learned a lot here. I'm just kind of wondering about your thought on the numbers of people you have available for these positions. You said the program was relatively new with the new sheriff, that you've been growing it, and sometimes you need to get waivers to have out of county or at least out of local people to do the job. I'm thinking if we're going to commit to 2 people, I would hope that they would be long-term-ish, So I'm wondering about your ability to staff 2 people without significant turnover in those individuals.
We haven't had any turnover in 2 years. So I think that it's us picking the right people and putting them with the right fit. So I know we haven't had any turnover at all. And we have a rover for the county. So I have an extra person who just goes from school to school and checks in and hands out paperwork and does what he needs to do. So that's my extra coverage that's built into my program. So I have one guy available should something happen to one of the people. But we just don't have any turnover. There's none in the program.
Okay, so but if we were to come into this memorandum of understanding, you would look to hire 2 more people and grow your program, and they would be involved with our district.
Yes.
Yes.
Solely for you, nowhere else, nobody else. They totally belong to you guys.
Right. And I guess the last thing, because my kids are only beginning the upper levels of school, unlike, some others who have had their kids go through the school a lot, and I appreciate their experiences. I'm wondering if there's some kind of record over the last, few years about, and this is more for Dr. Calvin, are there incident reports about what has happened in our schools related to the resource officers we've had? And can we, as a board, maybe get some kind of that information to see how, they've benefited our schools in that way?
Sure, we do have incident reports. I'm certain of that. In terms of the board going through all of those, I think we need to have a conversation about what the board is what you actually need with respect to that. But certainly information we can provide. But yes, do I think we have reports that we can get? I believe yes, we can. We can share with you some of the incidences that were avoided because of the support of the SRO, and really because of the relationships that they have with kids. Many of our kids see them as people to go to and share things before things get out of hand. And so we certainly have a number of things prevented or averted, supported in a better way because we had that extra set of hands in place to help. So, okay.
All right. Thank you.
My pleasure. Kathleen?
Yeah, just quickly, Mathis, can you just speak to what Jim's asking? When I was saying that the SROs are trained differently to handle, physically handle if necessary, what our teachers and faculty and staff are allowed to do and not do that differs from the SROs? Because in my tenure on the board, we've removed people from staff and faculty for touching students. So can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, there are certainly some, from time to time, issues that escalate, that do get to a point where you have to have some intervention from an officer, right? And certainly they can do that, and it probably, in those cases, it's better to let them do that than have a staff member do that and support in that way. And there are a number of things. We, unfortunately, in our schools today, we have a lot that's going on. We have many wonderful things that are happening, but we also have some behaviors that sometimes are real challenging, that need to be looked into, that rise to a level that really we need to have some officer support and involvement with. We do sometimes have children who unfortunately are experiencing interactions with medications or drugs. We do have some children sometimes who are having a lot of things going on in their homes that are presenting dangers to them and or the family that they're with. And so we need that interaction sometime with those officers to share those things and to help and to look into those matters and to resolve them in a really in a much better way. And some of those things, we can't do them on our own. We need to have the support of an officer. I have to tell you, this year I have worked at least on 2 or 3 different matters that involved our current SRO. And I don't know how we could have done it without her help. She had all of the knowledge from the city's police office department. She knew some of the resources that were there that we didn't know of to help get things in place. With her support, our administrator support, our counselor supports, working together as a team, we were able to really intervene in ways for kids that I just don't think would be possible without their help. It's a partnership, and they certainly do help with a lot of different things that are going on in the schools that our teachers are not able to do, that they shouldn't do. And some of our other staff really do need that extra hand there to help and support with. I hope that helps, Kathleen.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Yeah. So board, my recommendation for your consideration is that, again, we maintain 4 people, just doing it a little differently, 2 SROs and 2 staff members, and the staff members would be 10-month people versus the 12-month. We would like to also have, why do we want to do this? Because it provides us just a bit much more support in terms of for our schools with respect to the training and the background of our officers that would be working with us. We have, again, highly experienced security support for our schools that are staffed with people who have a strong background in this area. And then also, it just really, at this time, it makes sense in terms of efficiencies for the district as well, right? The costs certainly present a great opportunity for the district as a whole to reduce some of what we're spending for our kids. And I just think overall, I am a real proponent for and an encourager of our of SRO programs. I've seen the work that they do, and I have honestly, I've worked with 3 or 4 SROs over the last 5 to 6 years, and all have been very positive. I've not had challenges, and it is a relationship with the district and with the entire community. And I've seen the great work that they do. With that in mind, that would be my recommendation to the board. So, if the board is okay with this recommendation, what we'd like to do is just plan for that in the budget. If the board needs time to think about it, we have another meeting before we start to really adopt the budget. The board can feel free to take some time, think it over, and then at our next meeting, kind of let us know so that way we can make sure we get all this in the budget. But we just wanted to share that with the board and see where you're at. We have a preliminary budget now that we certainly have already kind of plugged some things in there with it, but we want to hear what you have to say and make sure if you're okay with it or not. So if you're okay tonight and you say move forward with that in the budgeting process, we can do that. If you'd like to take more time, we are okay with that as well. So that's what I wanted to share.
So Mathis, are you looking for a motion and a vote so that you can gauge where we're at, or what is it that you're looking for?
Yes,
Just like the recommendation, you're looking for a motion to follow your recommendation for the SROs.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there someone who...
I make a motion that we vote on Dr. Calvin's recommendation with the SRO officers as stated.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Further discussion?
So my only thing right now is voting on something that we haven't seen any kind of memorandum of understanding. I'm hesitant to put a vote to something where we haven't seen anything beyond some bullets and a PowerPoint slide. So I would prefer to see some of that kind of information before trying to commit to it. I actually didn't think we needed to, make a motion here to have Dr. Kelvin preliminarily budget it because we haven't voted on the budget yet. It seems to me as though if we're just giving permission to stick a line item in a budget, that vote's coming later when we actually do the budget. So I guess I'm just confused about why we're having this vote and what kind of meat this vote would actually have.
I think the recommendation was to pursue putting it in the budget, and we could do a straw poll or whatever. I think Mathis or Dr. Kelvin is trying to avoid doing all of the work, the legwork, to put it in the budget. And like you suggested, Jim, we can definitely wait and have this whole discussion again through the budget. But if we can kind of take some things in terms of discussion off the table, because there's going to be plenty to discuss in the budget anyways. But my understanding is that this motion and this recommendation is simply to put it in the budget, and that a memorandum of understanding would come to us separately.
Right. We would have to approve the MOU anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So
You're right, Jim. It's an extra step. We don't really have to do this, but I think it's just kind of giving him an understanding of who's in favor of this as we move forward in the budget process.
Okay. So this is really just to say we still want to see the memorandum of understanding. We still want to see the budget items.
Sure.
Oh, okay. Okay.
For sure.
So to be clear, who made the first? Linda, right? Your motion is to support his recommendation for putting it in the budget, period.
Right.
But we're not really, we're still, of course, going to pursue looking at all of the specifics.
Thank you, Heather.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. One opposed, I think, is Lisa there.
Yeah. I do actually have one other question. Do we have money budgeted for DARE?
Nancy, do you want to answer? I think that one.
I think she said no.
We don't pay for DARE. That's all funded by the city OPD.
Okay. I mean, just like we talked about evidence-based instructional practices, like it's been almost 2 decades that DARE has been completely debunked. Again, like community policing, setting up good relations with police, all a good thing. DARE is not effective. We really, I mean, the state has a license to do that. They should not. What's that?
Where's the data on that?
You can actually even just Google that one, but I can send you the data on that one. It's been like officially, even the government, I think, now says it doesn't work. And that was like the Bush administration said that it doesn't work and they were pushing it. So, but I can send you, there are lots of scholarly articles, lots of reports on the effectiveness of DARE and actually keeping children from not using drugs.
But again, if you look at the purpose of the SRO, I mean, just, you know, right. Whether or not it's that issue about paying, like, DARE is an organization. You have a police officer in the school creating a relationship with kids. I don't see that as a bad thing. I see that as a very good thing.
But if OPD is spending money to a corporation who's making money on a program that doesn't work, we can be spending money on a program that is effective. Right? Like,
but we're not spending money. There's no cost.
OPD, I mean, OPD should be like, that's a waste of other taxpayer money. If they're spending money specifically on DARE, Officer Grover's great. Like, he could come and do other stuff, but why are we paying, or why are they paying DARE when it's been completely debunked? Like, all of the support saying that they were effective were their own, like, flawed studies.
Right. Lisa, I think you need to take that up to the
I will. That's what I said. Yeah. That's what I was asking, if we paid for it, but I will certainly be writing to the chief about that.
Okay. So Dr. Calvin, I think you have approval to at least put it in the budget and without too much more discussion. And then, obviously we'll be looking at the specifics as we move forward.
Okay. All right. Thank you, board. I appreciate that. Thank you, Deputy Gaeta. We appreciate all of your time. Everybody else with the deputy?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your patience tonight.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Good night.
Okay, Mike. Thank you. All right, board. We're going to shift here and just go over a couple things here with respect to the budget now. Go ahead, Matt. All right. And this is our last item we're going to talk a little bit about tonight. So we just wanted to share some things around our preliminary budget, things that we're kind of working together on. Go ahead. So again, our processes, we're trying to make sure that we have a budget that's fiscally sound, that is flexible, foolproof, and that also flows for our district. Matt? Just to let you know, we are still awaiting the New York State budget. Our districts all districts are concerned. Typically, we get the budget by April 1st. And this year is an anomaly. We don't know how soon this budget will be done. We were hoping for last week, Friday, and then we heard maybe Monday. So now we're pushing towards Wednesday. So hopefully we'll get some information back soon. I'd like to also share with you that we have received some information from the Federal American Rescue Plan Act. And what we know right now is that there's been some information that's been put out through the media. So one of our states, or our senators, Senator Schumer, sent some stuff out to the media and shared some preliminary information around these funds. Locally, we have not received things from the state solidifying what he has said, or telling us that, hey, this is the actual amount you're going to get versus the amount you're not going to get, and how do you spend it. We haven't received a lot of information on that. We did get a memo that was put out to the field that basically gave a little bit of guidance, and what it was pretty vague, though. I mean, it said 90% are going to go to local educational authorities. There'll be money in there for IDA, which involves students with disabilities. Some money will be in there around E-rate. The Elementary and Secondary Schools Emergency Act will have some funds in there for that. And then they finally shared that there will be 20% of whatever that's in your allocation is got to be put towards learning loss. Some of the information also listed some possible expenditure items. So again, addressing the needs of students with disabilities, English language learners. They talked about training and development. There was some indication here that we may be able to get some funds for providing meals that we've already delivered or put out there, and things that we may have to do in the future. Educational technology, there should be some funds in there that would be dedicated to that. You could use possibly some of these funds for mental health supports for kids, and also for sanitation for your schools during the COVID-19 piece that we're going through right now. So the memo that we got just gave some vague topics, but no real specifics. We don't even have a letter yet that gives us the allocated amount from the state. What we have been told is by the end of April 2021, we will get a notice with what that allocation is and what are all the parameters around how you might be able to go about spending these funds from that Rescue Act. So more information is forthcoming. It's to be continued. And we're just waiting to hear and to see. So, there's been people who've asked us, hey, we heard Chuck Schumer make some comments. He did make them, but we have nothing in writing that's been solidified, anything yet. So we're just waiting until the end of April, and hopefully we'll get that information. Our hope is that we'll get it before we have to finalize the budget. That's our real hope, right? So we'll know what is from what isn't. Okay? Go ahead, Matt. So in our last meeting, we had some questions around transport. I'm sorry, Jim, did you have a question?
Well, just as a clarification, because it showed up is this the same thing where it showed up in the newspaper, how many $1 million we're in?
Yes, that was in the newspaper.
This is something that people have been talking about, right?
Right, yeah, so it did. It showed up in the local newspaper and all over the state. And we were excited. We expected to get something right away, right after, but we didn't get it. And what we have heard is that there's a lot of parameters that comes with this money. Like, it's not, one of the things that we've heard is that, it'll come out of federal funds. And so you may not be able to use it with use your general funds or anything with this. And that there's going to be parameters, specifics. So we're waiting and eager to see what, where, and how. Why? Because we're trying to plan for the future with our kids, right? And for our district, and see where we might be able to use funds to help keep things low in terms of cost for the district. So, but yes, that is the stuff that was in the paper that we're waiting to hear details on. Right?
Okay, thank you. And in your last slide, you mentioned training and development. Would that include us investing in curricula if we decided that would help our overall instructional support for students?
I don't know.
You don't know.
Right. It was just a topic that was put out there, right? So they listed like 8 names or 8 things rather that these funds might be able to be used upon, but no explanation on all of them. The only one thing that we did hear about was 20% being used to help provide some support for kids who may have fallen behind and really need catch-up kinds of supports in place. So we know that at least that 20%, whatever that number is going to be, 20% of it has to be used for that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So you, at our last meeting, you talked a little bit about transportation and wanted us to bring information back to you around the fleet. So we have that information tonight. Go ahead, please, Matt. So we wanted to share with you all of the buses in the fleet. As I shared at the last meeting, generally what's happening in most districts is that after 5 years of having a bus, really the districts are, for most part, districts are looking to replace the buses. Why? Because the warranties start to run out, costs start to add up, and things really begin to become a little more costly for our taxpayers. In our district, it's been a little bit farther out. I think you do 7 to 9 years, I think, Nancy, as opposed to the 5 years. But that's certainly something that we can think about as we kind of move forward. So we do have some buses that are in the fleet that we're looking to do some changes on. Those that you see in yellow are things that we're already replacing in the current year's budget. So we have some vehicles who started with us from 2008 and on, and you can see the mileage that is there. And the age around those vehicles. So the wheelchair bus is one, bought for us in 2008. We had some challenges with, and there was also a SUV that was needed back. And again, that one is at 2012 is when that one was purchased. It's 9 years old. Okay, Nancy, did you want to add anything to that at all? To say everything was said?
Only that with our high mileage buses, it's because of the city stop and go. You may say 80,000 really isn't a lot of mileage on a bus, but because it is stop and go traffic in the city, it's very, very difficult on our buses.
Okay. Matt, want to go to the next group? You'll see more buses that are 9 years of age. We have a number of 66 passenger buses that are at our 9-year piece there. Okay. Go ahead, Matt. And board, please stop me if you need to. Here you can see buses from 2013 to 2015. We have one SUV, also another SUV that that's being purchased under this budget. Nancy, can you talk about that one, the SUV?
Sure. So far, the two SUVs that you see on there have mostly been used for McKinney-Vento runs because they're small enough to transport a lower number of students, and that's why you see the excessive mileage.
Okay. All right. Can you keep going there, Matt? So again, now these are vehicles from 2015. They're 6 to 5 years old, right? In the fleet. Go ahead, Matt. Down to now our 4 years of vehicles. Okay. And then go ahead, Matt. And then those that are 2 years to 3 years in age. Okay. Go ahead, Matt. All right. And now vehicles by year. Nancy, can you share a little bit about the slide?
Sure. So there was another slide for buses that did not appear. So there are an additional 6 buses from 2019 and one from 2021 that we just purchased. And we'll update that PowerPoint to put on the website. But the first bus that we have, the 2008, that is being replaced this year, and it has already been replaced. There are 4 buses in 2011, 11 buses in 2012, 8 in 2013, 4 in 2014. The 2012 and the 2014, those were the 2 years for the SUVs that are being replaced this year. They have been ordered. They have not been received. There is a lag on getting vehicles due to COVID. 2015, we have 9 vehicles. 2016, 8. 2017, 5. 2018, 7. 2019, 9 vehicles in that year, and 2021, 1 vehicle. So that makes 67 vehicles in all that we have in our current fleet.
So you have 64, you have, what is that, 16 that certainly are nearing time to really be looked at or over the time, and 8 additional that are really coming up pretty soon here, basically, board. Okay. All right. Go ahead. All right. Nancy, go ahead. You want to share about the slide?
So in the proposition for last year, we were allowed to purchase 1 bus and 2 SUVs. As I said, the 1 bus has come in. The 2 SUVs we're still waiting on. Transportation is looking to replace 10 buses in the proposition for next year. 4 buses from 2010 and 6 buses from 2012. All of the buses that we're looking to replace either have high mileage or high repair costs.
Okay. Right. Go ahead, Matt. So now talk a little bit about the estimated tax rate. Go ahead, Nancy.
So at the last board meeting, it was asked about the tax rate. Our current tax rate in the city is $17.91 per thousand. The estimated full value tax rate for next year is estimated at $18.16 per thousand. That would be an increase of 25 cents per thousand. The average tax increase on a $100,000 home would be $24.18. And next slide, Matt. The reason that I say estimated is because there are a lot of variables that affect the tax rate calculation. One is the tax rolls with current assessments, and we don't receive those until July. The other is the equalization rates, which are not solidified as of yet either.
Okay, any questions on the tax rate at all, board? Are you okay? Okay, Matt, go ahead. So also at our last meeting, there were some questions around the benefit breakdown. I think Tom had some questions around that. We just wanted to share as a follow-up on that as well. Go ahead, Matt. And go ahead.
So all of the items that are included in benefits are state ERS and TRS, of which you see both an increase. Social Security and Medicare, workers' compensation, life insurance is flat. Unemployment insurance, you may say, wow, what happened with that? Our unemployment insurance rates have gone through the charts since COVID has hit. So we're planning on a large increase. There is a huge gap in our current budget in regards to unemployment insurance that will have to be backfilled from other accounts, but that is a concern that we have. Long-term disability, a small decrease. Health insurance, which as you recall, we are self-insured. We're showing a slight uptick in that. Medicare reimbursement, that is for our Medicare retirees. And we're showing that as flat. I did an analysis of the Medicare retiree reimbursements along with the increase in rate, and we think that that is enough to cover any additional increases. Dental and vision shows a slight increase. Next slide, Matt. In addition to that, we have an employee assistance program that the district funds, administrative insurance, CSE, and teacher top step, that is for insurance reimbursements, and $3,000 amount for our tax sheltered annuity processing. So as you can see, the budget for all of our benefits, which are inclusive of all that you've seen above, is to increase $1.1 million, and the majority of that is unemployment.
Go ahead. Tom, you had a question before we go ahead?
Yeah, I just had a question regarding our health insurance. Are we, Nancy, shopping around? How often do we do that? Are we looking at working with other groups relative to that? I mean, because that 17% of our budget is sitting in health benefits, just health benefits, and 30% of our budget is just benefits alone. So is there anything that we're looking at doing in terms of looking at that number, since it is so substantial?
We constantly look at that number, Tom. Our third-party provider, ENV Insurance, is always out looking at the market, looking to see what we have. We did change health insurance companies about a year ago, and we do have other mechanisms in place in order to reduce some of those. We get rebates. We have prescription rebates. We have people looking at different prescription costs to make sure that our generic fills are higher, which saves the district money. So, and we have a healthcare committee, which is comprised of 2 members of each of our bargaining unit, including Dr. Sweeney and myself. And that is a monthly committee meeting where, we look at our cost for health insurance. We discuss what we would like to see. We do have a very rich plan.
So certainly, can we continue to do that? We absolutely will, Tom. So yes, to answer your question. Heather, did you have a question there? I think?
Yeah, I actually had a recommendation. I'm looking at the clock, and I know we do have some retirees that are waiting for their resolutions to come up and everything, but this is all very important information because it's the budget. I'm wondering if we could just kind of go through the slides and then schedule a workshop so that we can ask as many questions as we have and not take more time tonight on asking specific questions about the budget. Would that be something that everybody's amenable to?
Do that.
Okay, so we can schedule that at the end if you'd like, but if you want to, we can just maybe, with the understanding that we're just going to go through the slides right now and we'll ask questions then. That would be good.
Okay, all right, go ahead, Matt. All right, and then we had some budgetary considerations, wish list items that the board asked about. So we do have those items for you that we will go through. So generally, each year as we do the budget, we do talk with all of our leaders and see if there are things that people might want. And these are some of those items there from the wish list. So, at all of our elementary schools, our principals collectively said that other than their instructional supplies, they would they don't have any other new ask or wish list items. Their goal is to just really kind of keep things status quo and move forward in that way. So there weren't those wish list items from the elementaries. At the middle school, we had a series of items, but the two most important ones, the first in terms of the prioritized list, the first was an assistant principal. They currently have an assistant principal that's provided for with respect to a grant, and they wanted to make sure they maintain that as we continue to move forward. We don't know yet. It doesn't appear that we're going to be off the list that we have with the state, so they wanted to have that maintained. The other thing was an intensive needs counselor. If there was a way to get some additional funds for, a counselor, will we be able to do that? At this time, we kind of shared that we would put that on hold to see kind of what happened in the near future around, funds that were going to be coming in and what the needs were as the school, as we start to plan for the next school year over the summer. So the assistant principal is certainly something that we do plan for, and those funds would be taken care of out of the grants that are attached to that. At the high school, we had some asks. The two asks were around a social worker and also a Farnham assistance counselor to assist. Both are on hold at this time. And as we started the budget year out, as you know, we're in a deficit, and we kind of wanted to hold things status quo and then think about those other items. And so one of the things we've been looking at is the amount of counselors. We currently have 4 counselors at the high school and 2 social workers there. This is an ask for additional social work help and also assistance with another counselor for 2 to 5 days. So certainly something that is certainly on our radar and things to kind of think about. But at this time, we placed it on hold. Moving ahead, please. Matt, with facilities, so some things that were on the wish list, if we can get another maintenance van, a district truck, a grounds worker, electrician, and a pesticide course. Those certainly are things that facilities would love to see. We've already done the pesticide course that we were able to do in this current year. Now, the one of all of those things that I would say that if we have the extra ability to do, once we find the final numbers from the state, the electrician, we are certainly supportive of that. The electrician is definitely something that we need, I think, moving forward. We have a lot of buildings with a lot of electrical needs. So if we can do this in this next budget, we would certainly suggest to the board that, and we'll come back at the board workshop to talk about that piece. There's also a request for a grounds worker, and that's really attached to the new stadium. That there will be some extra time needed to clean up and set up that stadium, and so some of the districts that we've talked to a little bit have said that if you get the turf, you're going to probably need an extra hand. So that was a request as we're starting to get this new turf in from our facilities director there at the time. So certainly something to think about. What we're doing right now is we're trying to watch to see what happens, how things go right now throughout the school year before we start to add in that area. Under the transportation area, you've seen the buses. That's in proposition to the voters at this time. And then we had lift repairs. And we had a lift that needed to be repaired on one of our buses, if I remember correctly. And that has already been done in the current year, so we didn't need to put that into the next budget. Go ahead, Matt. Under PE, there were some concerns about could they get a K through 12 PE department leader, basically, an indoor track coach due to increased population. So first of all, the team leader piece, that's certainly something that we would need to kind of look through to see what the needs are across the district to understand that better. So we put that one on hold. The indoor track coach is really going to be dependent upon the numbers for the track team. But if we have, a lot more increased participation, certainly that's something we can look at if we need to do that in the near future. There was a question about could we get a JV cheerleading head coach position put in and a varsity wrestling assistant coach. Both we placed on hold. The cheerleading piece, we haven't had any applicants for it, so we thought we're not sure if we should throw that in at this time in the budget. The wrestling assistant coach, I think again we need to look at what the needs are, how many kids we're talking about in the program. It's really driven by student interest in the program and the numbers that we kind of need to look at there. And then there was some equipment repair items that we didn't see an increase needed. We were able we felt to handle those equipment issues around physical ed. There was a request for about a $14,000 digital trophy case. It's a nice case. It has like a digital screen set on it. It keeps rotating. Really nice item, but with a $600,000 deficit, we wanted to hold on that until we kind of work through that at this point in time. And then there was a question: could we possibly get another strength and conditioning coach? That position was eliminated in the previous budget. The cost on that is about $40,000, and certainly that's something to think about as we kind of move forward. But right now, we did not include that at this time. Okay. Next screen, Matt. And then in terms of technology department, there was a request to see if it's possible, could we get a library team leader, and move 24-hour position to full-time, and then also electric forms platform. So there is a software system that would help to make all of our forms electronic as opposed to having to go online. So first we wanted to look at that software to really understand it better before committing that to another year's budget. And then the other two positions, again, we're trying to hold things steady before we start to add additional staffing on to certain areas at this point in time. So we've actually placed those on hold right now. Matt? Okay, can you go back for a minute? I think we had a question there from Kathleen. Did I see Kathleen's hand go up, or were we okay to move on? Okay. Okay, go ahead, Matt. So, and also there were some questions about, what's included in the salaries, and we just wanted to share that when we do the salary projections up, there are a number of items included. Go ahead, Matt. And those items involve base salary, right? And keeping in mind that we are in the process of negotiating 4 different contracts at this time. So we kind of moving in with our best guesstimate, but included are the base salaries. Longevities are part of those salary projections. The educational background of the folks that we're working with or that work for us. Stipends such as club advisors, department heads, team leaders, music and band directors, etc. Right? Retirement payouts, what those might be, and also coaching salaries as well. So all of those items go into the salary. It's not just the salary in itself. Right? Okay. Go ahead, Matt. Okay, board, are there any questions or any other thoughts before we end with that, basically? Is everybody okay? So Heather had mentioned trying to do a board retreat, workshop. I think that'd be an awesome idea. So the budget needs to be adopted on the 25th. So anytime that the board would like to do a workshop, we can do a budget workshop, and then do the final. You have another meeting coming up on the 20th where we could adopt the budget if everything is all set. So Heather, I'm not sure if you were going to put out some dates or times, but
Meredith had a couple suggestions. One was to actually just spend the 20th talking about the budget, and then potentially, if there were still problems, we could get back together later in the week and approve the budget. Alternatively, we could meet Monday before. Alternatively, I don't know, Mathis, we didn't discuss this, but is there a potential to meet next week, like even next Tuesday? There was some concern about having the numbers from the state, I know, but you were hoping that potentially we would have those.
Right.
We can at least talk about the expenditure side of things.
Sure.
So I'm just looking for input from you guys as to how you want to go about doing this. So it looks like our choices are either next Tuesday, or Monday the 19th, or dedicating our meeting on the 20th, recognizing, of course, that we would either have to approve the budget that day or within the week.
Can we go ahead, Tom?
Oh, yeah, I would just appreciate the sooner the better, because then anything that's discoverable at the time we'll have time to explore those before we get closer. So the sooner the better for me, and I'm pretty much available to work any time.
Great.
Okay, what if I ask everybody, is next Tuesday, Mathis, are you okay at this time, the same time, maybe 4:35? Does that work for everybody?
Yep, I can do that. Sure.
Thumbs up. Lisa, is that going to work for you?
I just have a question. Do we have to go to that city BOCES meeting, or is that just for informational? Because I put it on my calendar, but this would take precedence. Yes.
Right.
I think that's Wednesday, though, right? Isn't that?
It's Wednesday the 14th.
14th.
Oh, okay.
You can do both, Lisa. I don't think we all have to
4:30.
attend the BOCES meeting, just represented it. We need to have a representation there. So, does 4:30 or 5 o'clock on the 13th work for everybody? Thumbs up. Keep them up if 4:30 works, so we can get started a little earlier. Yes, Kathleen, I can't see you because you're not on my screen. Are you okay? Can anyone else see her?
You can see her.
Oh.
Heather, I don't think she's here at the moment.
Okay. Well, let's go with that then. Let's schedule that, and if it's a big problem for Kathleen, we'll have to get back together and discuss it again. But I think let's schedule that 4:30, the 13th for a workshop.
Great.
Thank you, everyone.
Great. And it's our hope that we'll have budget stuff back from the state prior to that. Okay. All right. Great. Okay. All right, board. With that said, unless there's other questions, that's all I have for you this evening. Any other questions from the board? Okay. Thank you. All right, Matt, you can go ahead and log us off there. And all right, we're all set.
Okay, next is the consent agenda. Minutes of the regular board meeting of March 16th, 2021. Special Education Board Report, April 6th, 2021. Treasurer's Report, February 2021. Monthly Budget Status Report, February 2021. District Financial Report, July 1st, 2020 to February 28, 2021. Bid sheet for soil remediation project. And the last item, fund balance projection of June 30th, 2021. If I could have a motion.
Move it.
Second.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Next is personnel with Dr. Sweeney.
Good evening, everyone. We have our next group of retirees tonight, so I will again read the general recommendation and then I'll go through each individual employee. Upon the presentation and recommendation of Dr. Calvin, we ask that the Board of Education accept the following retirements. Whereas the following individuals were employed continuously by the Oswego City School District, and whereas they admirably served the students and staff of the Oswego City School District with their full commitment to their responsibilities and worked in partnership with their fellow employees and with their full service and dedication to the best interests of all students of our school district. Now therefore be it resolved that the Oswego City School District hereby recognizes that their service was an asset to the students and staff of our school district, and we express gratitude and sincere appreciation for their years of service. Our first retiree is Lori Bradway Vega from the middle school, who has worked as a foreign language teacher for the period of September 1st, 1985 to the present, and has a retirement date effective July 1, 2021. Our second retiree is Cheryl Irwin, the Oswego High School, who has worked as a family and consumer science teacher since September 2nd, 1980, and will be retiring effective July 1st, 2021. Our next is Kathleen Schaefer of Minetto, who has worked as an elementary teacher since September 1st, 1992, and will be retiring effective June 30th, 2021. Next is Sherry Fry from Fitzhugh Park School, who has worked for us as a teacher aide since May 8th, 2015, and will be retiring at the end of June, effective June 29th, 2021. And our last one, Susan Komrowski at Transportation. As a school bus driver, Susan has worked for us since May 5th, 1989 to the present, and will be retiring effective June 25th, 2021.
For items A through E, could I have a motion?
Move it.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Congratulations to everyone, and thank you.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed.
Okay. F, our professional staff recommendation, resignation, Crystal Peniston, special ed teacher, Layton School, effective June 30th, 2021. G is a leave of absence, Tammy Hammond, teaching assistant at the middle school from 2/1/21 through the end of the school year, June 30th. H, 2 additional special education tutors as needed. I. We are starting to bring forward our summer recommendations. So these are our typical middle school summer counseling services as needed and as presented. J, we have 3 additional district videographers being added into the group, again, as needed. And K, our spring sport appointments. Karen, I'll stop there because I think we'll have to do something with L.
Okay. Items F through K. Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Second, please.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
For L, would you like that tabled?
Yeah, we just need a motion to table that resolution.
Mm-hmm.
Can I get well, I'll make the motion to table that. Can we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And then we'll start with our support staff recommendations with M. We have a leave of absence for 2 folks, Deb Meeks, food service helper, and Katrina Scaglione. Deb is extending hers through June 30th, but Katrina is actually ending hers and able to return to work. Because of the change in our student schedules, there are some folks who now may be able to return to work because their kids will be attending the 4 days. N is a support staff recommendation resignation, Marissa Johnson, typist, effective April 13th. O, a support staff recommendation, probationary appointment for 2 teacher aide, part-time at Fitzhugh Park. Those are replacing some folks who have either resigned or moved to a different position. P, support staff recommendation, permanent appointment for Matt Snyder, who has completed his probationary position, probationary time frame for senior land tech. Q, temporary summer appointment for Cindy Zuber, again, one of our summer appointments for a clerk at the middle school. And our substitute and temporary employee batch.
Items M through R. Could I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is finance with Nancy Squires.
A is our annual report to transfer all unpaid taxes to the municipalities of the counties that we have and the city Chamberlain. B is a budget request for transfer of funds for technology, and this is to purchase 308 Chromebooks and licenses as part of a city project. And that amount is $11,919.04. C is for the board to approve the recommendation of the bid award for the soil remediation project to Ann Head Piping at a cost of $2,696,500. And D is a budget request for our building and grounds for $100,000, and that is to reimburse their equipment account for purchases that were made during COVID.
For items A through D, could I have a motion?
Move it.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I do have a question about the Chromebooks. So we've already committed about $940,000 to Chromebooks to bring our numbers up to like 4,700 Chromebooks. So how's this figure in with that?
So what had happened, Jim, was the vendors were supposed to cancel an order for the 318 Chromebooks. They did not. They were going to ship. And so Jamie looked at his budget and said, and knowing that prices of Chromebooks and the time to get them is still delayed because these were already en route, he made the decision that we were going to be able to use these Chromebooks. So we decided to keep them.
Okay, but so originally, so we've done 2 transfers of money already, if my memory serves. We took about 820 or 30,000 and put it into the BOCES line item so we can get reimbursed.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometime in late October, we got an early deal where we took almost $100,000 and bought, not through BOCES, so we don't get reimbursed, but we could get them now as opposed to the later BOCES. So if we've already transferred all that money to BOCES line, why can't that money be spent?
Because we've already spent that. This is for computers that were not included in those first 2 groups that we thought the order was canceled. The order ended up being shipped. We can use those. So Jamie found funding within his own budget accounts to pay for these Chromebooks.
Okay. So I guess just as, part of the oversight aspect of this, I know I've asked at some point before, maybe we can get an update on the number of Chromebooks and hotspots that we've currently purchased and the number that we've retired. Because I know one of the parts of this when I did the math is we have more than 1 unit per student, but it was that some of our units were old and they had to be retired. And so, at some point we have to figure out where our steady state is. And we're talking $1 million investment here, right? To get everybody 1 unit per student. So it just seems like we could keep coming back to more money.
All right. Sure. We can provide that at the next meeting, Jim. We can certainly provide that for you. In fact, I'll get that number to you before the week's out. Okay?
Thank you.
Sure. Absolutely. Pam has a question there.
I do. On C for the award of the bids for the soil remediation, the amount on the agenda is $2,696,500, but I have a different amount in front of me on the bid sheet. This really big long one that we got. That's one question.
So are you looking at the very end of the column, Pam?
Yes.
So that is not total. That is only for the base bid.
Okay. That is
the base bid and the alternate.
Right.
Okay. And then on that, the companies like O2 Soil Solutions, O4 Schedule, there's no amount there? Are they not doing that?
No, so the bidders were allowed to take Soil Solutions, and that is the group that provided the process for amending the soils for the metals so that they don't leach out. It's that company. So AdHand is using that company, which is why there is a 0 in that bid.
Thank you very much.
Nancy, I just had a question on the perimeter fencing. Could you just refresh me in terms of that as an alternate? Refresh me, because I know where we were with the hillside sidewalk, but the perimeter fencing, can you just refresh my memory?
So the perimeter fencing is going to be down hillside and believe up Buck Boulevard, those 2 sides.
Right.
And it's going to be, I think, 6-foot perimeter on those areas.
And we're adding that, I mean, that's an alternate only because we're doing that now. It was scheduled for a later phase. And that's much like the sidewalk is now. We're accommodating both as alternates, even though they were scheduled for a later phase because we moved Cook
Yes,
routes.
and it's much easier for them to complete that work now, including because the poles are going to be inset in the sidewalk. So they wanted to make sure that that would all be completed at the same time.
Right. I knew, like I said, I knew about the hillside thing. I forgot that the perimeter was again associated with the future phase.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kathleen, I think, had a question.
Yeah. When will that work, the remediation, begin, and how long will it take? And how will that affect the like the baseball fields? That fence is up to it. So, just thinking of spring sports, what's going to?
It can start. We're looking for it to start as soon as tomorrow. They're ready to go, basically. We just had to have this one part done. The work will take. I believe we did in the previous board meeting. I think it was like a month or two that it would take to get the work done. And then the last question about the ballpark fields. Nancy, you want to answer that one? That part?
That I don't know. I know that I think I have to reach out to Rhonda because I don't know if she has already started to use alternate fields for baseball and softball because the work's going to be done. But I really can't answer that right now. It all depends on how quickly this work gets done and how soon we could get those fields in play if we had to.
I can get you a preliminary answer before the week's out to send out to the board, if that would help, Kathleen. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Any other questions on that?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is the student representative discussion. Zeta?
Nothing for me tonight.
Okay. And would there be any items from the board tonight?
I just had a quick one. I know I keep bringing up the conversation of the equity training conversation, and I know Lisa brought up a lot of good things tonight in our SRO conversation that kind of link together and relate. Unfortunately, our professors are really busy right now, which is understandable, and we are also now going into a transition phase for our board, potentially. So we've kind of made the decision to wait on like training or connecting with the college till after a new board is in place, so everyone can benefit from it. But I really feel like it's important to maximize the institutional knowledge of the folks that are here, especially the two that may be going off the board who know an awful lot about how things have been run, maybe some holes that we have in equity and opportunity. And so I'd really like to start that conversation ASAP. Unfortunately, we also are running headlong into our budget conversations. So I had really hoped for the next meeting to have like a short agenda and just get the conversation started. I think we'll see how our workshop goes on next week and see how far we get with the budget conversations. But I'd really like to start that formally as a board, either at the next meeting or the first meeting in June or May. Sorry, I want it to be warm faster. So I hope everybody's okay with that. And my thought is I would get a kind of a little agenda out to everybody ahead of time so that we can be really productive in our conversation.
Okay. Any other items from the board?
I just had a suggestion. I'm sorry, Pam. I didn't mean to jump in.
Go right
there.
ahead, Tom. Say okay.
I really like the idea, Dr. Calvin, at the front end where you put in the highlights of the students and their accomplishments. And I like the idea of the visual of that. And I just think if we can make sure that we find a place, because there are so many good things that are happening, that we can pull those out and highlight them and utilize those, because I thought that was great for to have up front like that. Thank you.
Yes, it was. Thanks, Tom. I just, my normal thank you out to all those teachers that have been working hard, probably over their little break, to welcome those second and third graders back for in person more. So yay to them, and thank you to all that are working to bring 4 through 12 back 4 days a week. A lot of people are looking forward to that. I think even some of the students are looking forward to that. So thank you again to all those out there doing the hard work for us.
Great. Kathleen, and then I see Tom again.
Yeah, just what Tom was saying. That's one of the things that I've personally missed being on the board this last year, meeting remotely, is that we're not acknowledging student achievements and faculty achievements, and it's sad that we've missed out on it.
Tom?
Yeah, I just want to say one other thing. This morning, there was not a facilities committee meeting, but some people have it on their schedule and they click the link anyway. And so some person, and there were two of us that were guilty as charged, the principal of Layton and myself. And it was just really wonderful because she was so excited about having the kids back today. So I just wanted to say that, and you could see it in her eyes and you could see it in just her presentation, you know, and it was so exciting and exhilarating for her. So I just wanted to commend, just, you know, dovetailing on everything that Pam said as well, that that recognition, because we know it was a big day, and it was really nice because it was just so genuine. She was so pleased to have the kids back. So I commend them all. So thank you.
Any other items? Next, the Board of Education will move to an executive session for the purpose of negotiations in the employment history of a particular person. Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
Will there be a need for a vote after executive session?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You may move to executive session.
Thank you.